Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Kennel NRL podcast. And let me start by saying the NRL bunker needs to be blown up. Where the great round of footy was ruined by poor bunker results and some poor officiating. But I digress. Today, I would like to welcome back my co-host, Dibbo. Thanks for coming back, Dibbo.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks for coming. And today I'd like to introduce a new guest we have with us today, Tareq Ahmed, a provisional psychologist specializing in suicide prevention. And get this, he's a Cowboys supporter that lives in the heart of the Belmore Bulldogs area. I repeat, a Cowboys supporter that lives in the heart of Belmore. Welcome, Tareq. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So tell us, how exactly did you betray your roots and start supporting the Cowboys?
You know what's funny? 20 years later, and I'm still having this exact same conversation.
So who was it? Was it Josh Hannay? Was it Bowman?
No, it was, I know, you're growing up, you're watching the footy, I've been watching footy since I've been 4. So, you're trying to find out what team you want to go for. So I went for the Knights for a while and all that sort of stuff. But back in 2004, just when the Dogs actually won the grand final, the Cowboys had a pretty decent team they were building up. So in 2005, you had a really good, solid foundation. Like one of my favorite players of all time in the NRL has to be Matt Bowen. Because he made me, the Mango Magic, he made me fall in love with the game. So you had Matt Bowen down the back, you had Matt Singh and Ty Williams on the edges, you had, Bowman and Hannay in the centres.
All Origin players.
It was pretty much the Origin backline at that time.
And Test match players as well.
Do you remember that they beat, that in 2004 when they beat the Bulldogs in the first round of the finals?
Absolutely, yeah.
I was it was blown away. No one thought, the Cowboys came out of nowhere.
Yeah, so that's what helped me fall in love with the game. And you had Jonathan Thurston come in, you had Paul Rauhihi up the front. It was a really good side. And I was 12 or 13 at the time. So, about 18, 19 years ago. And I just fell in love with the Cowboys and I've been a supporter since.
What was his name? That strong forward for Queensland as well?
Matt Scott?
Not Matt Scott, the other one.
He came up
He's got motor neuron disease now.
Carl Webb,
yeah.
He was amazing in his day. Yeah, I remember.
John Buttigieg there as well.
Oh, that's right.
Back in his prime, Carl Webb, he was one of the most feared players in the NRL, he played for Queen. He remember had the Q.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. He had a couple of games where he blew New South Wales away.
He was another Billy Moore, I guess, very passionate for Queensland.
And then he went to Parramatta and killed his career.
He was at the back end of his career anyway.
Yeah.
So
wasn't that the year Parramatta just signed all people that were back in their career, almost retired, and medically retired people?
Carl Webb.
I think they got Felitti Mateo back. Yeah, second coming.
Yeah,
I think it was just
Willie Tonga came back as well.
That's right.
He was a bit older. They were a bit older at that time.
I think they had their best years were behind them. So.
Yeah.
It was the graveyard.
Who's to say there's
might be a graveyard again. Might be a graveyard again.
Might be, man.
For fullbacks anyway.
So how does it feel then when the Doggies make the finals and everyone's going crazy in Belmore and you've just got to sit there and say,
honestly, I love it.
Yeah?
Don't get me wrong. I've been punching on my friends since, remember 2014 when Brad Best, I was in your face and all that kind of stuff.
Don't remind me that day, man.
And since we were kids, we were fighting the Dogs have won this many grand finals. How many have the Cowboys won? And in 2015, I was we've got one. We've got one. I'm happy.
Best grand final ever.
But honestly, it's still fun. Obviously I don't support the Dogs, but when you see, I live in the heartland of Belmore, and I actually think the Doggy supporters have some of the best, most passionate supporters. I know they've had a bad rap, but if you think about it, think about 2000s. Who brought the energy?
No one parties as much as their fans. I don't think anyone's as passionate as their fans. I know there's been stigma in the past that they're worst behaved fans or something like that. Not anymore. I was at that game at Belmore a few weeks ago. I think those guys that used to be brawling back in the days all got families now. And I'll tell you what, everyone was so well behaved. It was actually a pleasure to be there at the ground amongst everyone.
It's awesome to hear.
It was very good. I think now the biggest grubs in the game are probably the Panthers fans.
I think it's harsh, man. I think they're passionate. I think I'll tell you it's the Dragons fans, but that's
the Dragons fans.
Let's all have a go at every other team.
The Dragons fans are only good at having a go at their coaches and their players. No one wants to go there now because of that.
The Dragons are a basket case. And let's not get into that just yet. So, Tareq, you're a provisional psychologist. You specialize in suicide prevention. So I've got a couple of questions for you about mental health affecting players, juniors, coaches, and things like that. So I'm just going to ask you some questions,
Absolutely.
sort of a bit of a back and forth. So firstly, a lot of the things, especially now doing a podcast, and you realize just how much your words can affect players. So, how hard is it for a player to cope with the bullying and the targeting that the media does on individual players? You look at, for example, Luke Brooks I'm sure he's a great person. He may not be working out at the Tigers, but like that sustained pressure and that sustained sort of bullying almost to extent should, like, I would say it has a massive effect on someone's mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us, a lot of people think that players are just commodities. We own them because they're part of our team and we can say what we want. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Only because now we live in a time and I guess an age where we're connected 24/7, right? There's no way that, back in the early 2000s, before Facebook, before all this happened, came along, you could sort of switch off. You don't have to hear about it. You don't have to see it. You don't have to worry about it. Whereas now it's like you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got TikTok, you've got Instagram, and everybody has an opinion.
Yeah,
everyone has an opinion about the players, and it's not like it's constructive criticism. It's not like, oh, look, I don't think he's working out. I don't think he's worth the $1 million price tag now. He's got the potential, but I just don't think it's working out. Now, like what you see is people are going after their families. They're going personal. Like they start attacking them, and you start
they get racist.
Them. They get racism, and that's a really terrible part of the game. In terms of it occurring, and I do genuinely believe that it really does impact the players. Like you have to understand that players are human at the end of the day. They're human beings. They're individuals who have partners. They've got their kids. They've got their life outside of footy. They've got their families, and they've got issues as well. Like just like we all have our issues in our personal lives. They also go through similar things. Not everything for them is just about the rugby league and playing. Don't get me wrong, it's important. It's a big part of who they are. But then, they've got all these things going on. It's just a normal part of life. And then you go to a game and you're trying to, they put on a really good show, especially this season. How good's it been? It's been an amazing season. Yeah, a couple of contentious calls.
Probably the best opening we've seen.
Yeah, a long time.
Some reports it's best opening since 1908, which blows my mind, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's something that I think probably doesn't get spoken enough about, and the media isn't held accountable either. Like I think, especially if you look at some of the bigger rugby league shows, it's like they've made it their goal or they've made it their thing to target one club or one player at a club and stick to them. Like Luke Brooks and the West Tigers, I know they're not doing well, right? But the amount of articles and the amount of discussion that he takes, it must be like 50% of that show gets spoken about, and I just think, look, if I were you, bro, I'd walk away. I'd just pack up and go to New Zealand to go play for the Warriors or something, because you don't need that. Like it's just going to continue to hound them.
Yeah.
So we mentioned racism with Latrell. And Latrell's a strong guy. Like he cops the racism, but he comes back and he talks about it. He lets the journalists ask him questions. But how tough is it to deal with? From an Indigenous kid who's grown up, who's such a great role model for other players and the fans. How tough do you think it is for someone who's only 24, 25 to deal with all that pressure of footy and to deal with the racism?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want you to think about us, right? If somebody says something hurtful towards us, how do we feel, right? And now we're talking about something a bit more, sensitive, a lot more that's going on for them. He's trying to have a good time. He's trying to play footy with his family, like with his friends, celebrate after the game, and then he's walking off the field and he hears something. He's something extremely racist. It's something that's attacking them. It's vile, like disgusting stuff that's going on. And then, for you to hear that, and especially with everything that's happening, how would you feel? Yeah. Obviously, you're going to... I don't blame him if he does lash out. I don't blame him if he does come on and
I'm with you. To ignore something like that is the wrong reaction. Yeah. I guarantee you, it needs a reaction. And
I think the biggest issue with it is... When they do react, it's like, oh, look at Latrell, look at this player, look
how the Indigenous players act.
Yeah, it's like hold on a minute. Why aren't we addressing the racism? Like that's the issue. It's not the way they respond, because I can see where he's coming from.
Absolutely.
Like he's passionate. He loves his community. He loves where he's from, just like we love our communities and where we're from.
And he's never lashed out. That's the thing about him. Like that's what makes me think this guy must have some strong support at home and have some really strong confidence in himself, because not once, because he's had people, on Instagram telling him to kill himself, hurling racist abuse at him, and not once has he actually lashed out when he could. He can come out to the media and lashed out. And the last thing I would want to see, someone like Latrell be lost to the game like Adam Goodes was for AFL. Like what a shame it was that Adam Goodes left the game because of all the racist abuse he was copying.
He was at the back end of his career.
Regardless,
he
though,
wasn't lost.
But hang on a second. Can you deny the fact that for him, he could have played another 2 or 3 years easily, and it was the last straw that pushed him over the edge?
Look, AFL's got a much worse racism problem than the NRL. It's actually more noticeable. Indigenous players, they're very resilient. They are very resilient. They cop so much. So remember as a kid, if you remember the Nicky Winmar incident when he lifted up his shirt, pointing out the colour of his skin.
Yes.
And then look,
That's an iconic photo.
It is.
AFL did not handle that racism issue with Adam Goods whatsoever. It was just very bad.
But I feel like they don't know how to handle it because it always so automatically, right? Those incidents happen. All of a sudden you go on social media, it's like, oh, you should just focus on your game. You should only focus on your performance. And then it's like, oh, we should just focus on the strengths of the game. And I agree, right? We should be focusing on the strengths of the game. But we also need to address the underlying issue that actually exists. We're not saying if this happens, like, oh, you know what? Just focus on your footy. Just focus on how you play. It's like, well, hold on. What about what's happening in the stands? And I'm sure the majority of people that go to the game, 100%. Are passionate supporters and they don't want to see that happen. Look, but then you go online, right? Sorry, and what happens is you go online and you've got all these adults coming on and chiming in and saying things like vile things like to other adults, to players. And for me, it's like, I understand the impact that's going to have on the player, right? Their mental health is obviously going to be impacted, but I also want those people that are commenting online to recognize, you know what, your kids are on social media. Yeah, your family's on social media. They see exactly what you're typing to these players and the disgusting comments that are directed towards them. How do you think they might approach you if they're struggling with their mental health and well-being?
He hit the nail on the head because what's really disappointing in that last incident, it was a teenager, right?
Yeah.
And that tells me what came out of his mouth is basically what's been fostered in the environment he's been brought up.
Parenting his environment.
So not necessarily his parents, but
his environment.
Possibly more probable, but it's the environment he's in. And just for a kid so young to come out with something like that.
Yeah.
And again, parents are probably more responsible than anything because they could have put a stop to that.
And you know what? Sometimes it's not the parents' fault, right? Because there is an environment.
Agreed.
And for me, it's not about, putting, this spotlight on that kid and destroy the kid's life. It's not about that. It's about let's highlight it. Let's get that education involved. We want to make sure that person that does engage in that, it's not about just cancelling that person and just getting rid of them and they shouldn't exist. No. We want them to be educated. We want them to understand what's going on so that they can live reach out to that young person. Find out what's going on for them. You know how many, I work in suicide prevention, psychology. I work with a lot of kids that have troubles, a lot of issues that go on, underlying trauma, whatever it may be. And sometimes people will say things just because they say things, right? They're angry, they're frustrated. It's not to justify what they say. Absolutely not. It's not acceptable. But reach out to that young person, educate that person, get that person to apologize for what they've said. Let them learn. Let it be a learning opportunity for them to become a better person.
Agreed. Well said. No, very, very well said. And I think that's what Nico Hines came out and he said, and he went to some schools and was talking to them about his indigenous culture. And, Latrell was verbal about what had happened to him. And to be honest, I think that we should support these players, even ourselves on social media. So if you see it, just call someone and, hey, bro, shut up. Hey, you're a grown adult. There's no need for you to be saying stupid, stuff like this. Look at yourself in the mirror, bro. You're 30 and you're saying this dumb,
those sort of fans need to be frozen out of the game completely. For a grown adult, it's still come out with vile things like that. Regardless how much you try to educate them, they need to be permanently banned from the game, frozen out.
So moving on, perfect segue because it's happening in the NRL. Do you think the NRL is doing enough about mental health?
I feel like they can be doing more. Okay. I really do think. Look, and I love where the NRL is going. Yeah. Because I don't believe that change happens overnight. Mm-hmm. I'm not a believer in that, You've got an organisation, NRL, it's been around for so long, just all the different formations and whatever it was in the last 100 years or ARL, all that kind of stuff. But it's been around for a very long time. And I feel like we're starting to head in the right direction, that it's starting to be spoken up. And I feel like there is starting to be a bit more support behind the players. But I feel like, we need to take it up to the next level. I think the NRL and all other sporting organisations need to take a leadership and say, all right, what else do we need to do on the ground? What other things can we do grassroots to educate young people, to equip them, not just educate, equip them with the skills and knowledge around mental health issues? Because a lot of young people are going through mental health problems, not necessarily disorders, but they have issues. And as someone who's, lived with depression and anxiety for a very long time, and I went through my own issues and all that kind of stuff, I can sort of look down and, not look down, but see the young people and sort of say, I was in your shoes at one point. And I feel like I wish I just had the environment playing footy. I loved footy, breathed footy, growing up. Where did we used to love going? We used to love going to training, except for Tuesdays because fitness was on. And they used to make
Tuesdays was fitness day, I remember.
Oh, man.
And then Thursday was the game plan.
That's when you wanted to
chip and chase, give me the ball, chip and chase.
Everyone wants to be the hero.
But think about how important that environment is for the young people.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that coaches, trainers, and even young people are involved in learning about these things so they can support each other.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying you can't have a laugh. You can't banter about footy. We've been bantering about footy our entire lives. But I think there's a distinction between bantering and going over the top with like racist comments and bullying
targeting,
and violence and aggression. It doesn't need to happen.
But I think also like the NRL, and I think they're starting to do some things, but it's also teaching like young footy players that are coming through the ranks how to deal with the spotlight and the pressure from media and the pressure from social media. Because over the last few years, there's been some really sad incidents where like under 20s players have taken their own lives, and it's like, well, I'm not blaming the NRL. No. I know that they are moving in the right direction, but I think that there could be more done. I think, and I do think we are heading in the right direction, but where do you see sort of yourself fitting in that environment?
Yeah, look, like you said, it's not to blame the NRL, whatever it is, because what you know is, growing up, you saw the articles, right? And because the media can't report directly about it.
Yeah. So they can't actually report
directly. They can't say like it's suicide. So what you'll notice down the bottom, and that's got to do with sort of the principles and what kind of stuff they have to follow.
Okay. So you'll notice. It's only after a while they can.
Yeah, but immediately you just see like, Lifeline, call Lifeline if you're unwell. But you're right. A lot of the young players, I want you to think about it. You've got so many NRL clubs. 17 NRL clubs. There's only 30 top positions that get selected. You've got hundreds and thousands of young people playing the game. And a lot of them are great footballers, excellent, but unfortunately injury happens. Sometimes they don't get selected. And a lot of the younger people, they don't necessarily think about what's to come after because they're like, this is my career and I want to support my family and I can do that, right?
I think they're just programmed or institutionalized to think footy's their life, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
They're not given the tools that for like post-career or as an alternate career that like, for example, study courses and all that.
Yeah.
But I think what we've seen from the NRL, they're very proactive on this now.
Which is great. It's so good to see, man.
A lot of footy players are actually doing like things like, for example, business courses and that. Like I saw recently Matt Lodge, he completed his Bachelor of Business degree.
Yeah.
That's just fantastic for someone that I know he was in the media about maybe 7, 8 years ago. And we all know what the incident happened overseas. I think he was only a teenager at the time, and he got a lot of negative publicity for for just one wrong move he did.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I think he's gone off, basically not touched a drop of alcohol. I think he's now married with 3 kids. He's just lived a very
really turned his life around.
Yeah, he's abstained from a lot of stuff.
But he's also
a doting father, yeah.
And I love that, right? And I love when you see that sort of stuff. But it's also important to recognize that even though we do see those sort of things, is to not make the assumption that young person might not also be struggling with their mental health and well-being. And you're right? I'm with you. Getting away from the alcohol and the drugs, because we know that really destroys people's lives, the alcohol and the drugs. But sometimes we're like, they're doing well. They've got the kids, they've got, they're married, they're doing real, they're settled down, they've got the job. And then we're like, all right, they might not need help, but we sort of miss that they might be also struggling. Yeah. And the reason why I mentioned that is sort of tying back into, you were mentioning about what else can we do? I mean, I'm doing a bit of work on the ground and I can't really say much about it. It's sort of in the early stages, but I'm working with, funding from New South Wales Health to equip as many, youth touch points, around suicide intervention. So we're going out and having these conversations, and I'm happy to share the link for the 90-minute online starts, and you can sort of have that. It's a suicide awareness, but we're also equipping coaches, trainers. We want you to be more comfortable, to have the conversation. If a young person is struggling, and a lot of people don't want to ask about whether it's suicide or whatever it is because we're afraid if they say yes, what do I do? But if I do ask, is it going to put the idea in there and that sort of stuff? And what we're trying to do is train as many youth touch points in. No, let's be more comfortable. Let's have this conversation. It's not about normalizing suicide. It's about normalizing the conversation around it. So that if a young person is struggling, and if a footy player is struggling, I want to create a society or an environment where a footy player isn't going to be afraid to say, I'm struggling right now. I need support. I feel like there's nothing wrong with that at all. I feel like I think it takes so much strength. It's not weakness; it's a strength.
Definitely courage to be able
it's a strength to deal with it in silence because it's tough.
Yeah,
but it's also requires a lot of strength to say, I'm struggling, and I think we should be putting things in place where if a player is struggling, encourage them. You know what? Your career is not impacted. Let's get you some time off.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Let's get you the support that you need.
Yes.
Let's not make a fuss about it.
Yes,
let's plaster the news about what's going on here, but let's get them the support that they need. And that's what I think what's important. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing to sort of improve the mental well-being of players, but also young people growing up in the sports and the grassroots as well.
I think that's That makes a lot of sense. What was that link you were saying that you could put that you can?
Yeah, so if you go online and type in no, it's called Living Work Starts.
Yeah.
It's an online program. It's funded by New South Wales Health. It's 90 minutes. It's interactive. And it's so anybody can jump online, and it's interactive, meaning you ask the question around suicide, you text message, but it's really just to get you aware of the topic, what might be happening for someone, and how to approach it. Because that's a big thing. We're afraid to have this conversation around this.
You just don't know how to approach it.
We don't know how to, but we don't realize, hold on, by not having this conversation, people are struggling in silence, and we want to change that.
So what I'll do is, everyone, I'll have that link in the description down below, and I'll ask Tareq that when you can talk more about some of the initiatives that you're running, I would love to have you back on to speak about it a lot more, because I think, we love rugby league, and we sort of, as part of this rugby league community, I think if we can just help even one person through a podcast, listening to us, help someone else, then I think, that's good enough on its own. Yeah. So I'll have that link in below. And we'll sort of work throughout the weeks with a little bit more mental health stuff, just so that we can all sort of share in those discussions and spread the awareness. Yeah, thank you so much for talking about that, Tareq. I really appreciate it. I actually have one more question, which refers to mental health. So Paul Green coached the Cowboys to a grand final. Unfortunately, he passed away last year. When you heard about that, did that hit you hard, knowing it was sort of, even though he's not someone that you knew personally, but he was the coach of your team, did that hit you hard?
Honestly, I was devastated because I didn't know how to respond. Even though I work in this space, I'm on the ground all the time. I teach suicide intervention. I have these conversations with all communities across the state, and eventually around the country and maybe around the world. But when I found out that about Paul Green, I was devastated. I was in shock. What we do know that for every person that takes their life, something like 150 people are impacted by it, So even though sometimes, and when you go to sort of Indigenous communities or other communities that are more collective, that number's much higher, even remote communities, because people know each other. So just when I found out that Paul Green, that happened, I was devastated.
I was devastated, and I didn't even support the Cowboys.
2015, that grand final, honestly, you remember it at my house.
When he celebrated.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was one of
great moments.
It was one of the Cowboy supporter or not. I've got a video. I would love to share it,
Actually, would you be willing to share
I'm happy to share it. You just see the moment when Kyle Felt scored that try in the 80th minute. I was losing it. And and you want the truth? In 2015, I was at a very low point in my life. I'll be honest with you. It was a tough time in my life. The depression and anxiety. So just to give you an idea, I was so ecstatic for the Cowboys to come up. I was buzzing. I was awake.
I remember
we already had 30 kilos of meat, yeah? Wow. We sparked up the barbie again and just started throwing more things on because we were so excited.
I think even to 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I worked the next morning and no one cared.
No, it would have been a long weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That's right, yeah.
Weekends.
And the boys that weren't even, everyone was there, The non-Bulldogs, non-Cowboy supporters were so excited about that grand final. So yeah, when I found out, I was broken. For a week, I'm just sort of thinking about it, and I'm like, is this a reality? Is this the truth? Because that's an important part of my life. Watching the Cowboys in the grand final, and Paul Green was at the center of that. Right, to learn about that, it was hard and understandable. You just see the ripple effect. You can ask anyone that was close to him. I'm not close to Paul Green. I was a Cowboys supporter, diehard supporter, and it impacted me like that. So just imagine what it might have done to family and friends and people close to them,
Yeah, it would have impacted the whole community because he was a player beforehand as well. I think.
Yeah, player.
He played for Cronulla. He played for the Roosters. He was one of my favourite sons down at Cronulla in the 90s.
Yeah.
He played for Queensland as well.
Yeah.
He played with flair as well. So.
Yeah.
So I have to bring this up because we mentioned the 2015 grand final a lot. How long do you think it took Ben Hunt to get over dropping the ball in the grand final?
The moment he left the Broncos.
I think so. Even I think it was last year or year before, I think in the paper, in the articles, I think his wife and him were still discussing about that drop ball incident. I don't think he's
over it.
I think he might have just gotten over it, but they were still copping flack years after.
Oh, that's ridiculous, man.
Years after, if you search, I think it was last year or the year before, he was still copping flack over that drop ball, and him and his wife were speaking about it together. I think it was in the Sydney Morning Herald,
wow.
Still going.
Again, years after, you've got supporters that come online and still like publicly shame him for what happened in 2015. Don't get me wrong, as a Cowboys supporter, I'm so happy that happened.
But that was within the context of the game.
On the game, you know?
Now he's one of the best Dragons players. He's one of the best Queensland players. He's like, he is the Dragons. Without him, the Dragons score 0.
I think he's the only first grader there.
But honestly,
Dragon player. Feel good. Cuts out the S. So Dragon player.
I actually think that he's one of the best players in the game.
I agree.
At the moment.
Honestly.
And I think he's worth every dollar. Like for what he does for the Dragons, what he did in Origin, you know, like he's such a good player. And for him to go 5 years later and people are still going on about it,
He's
like
stupid.
You know, he's also got an effect off the field. So he's commercially and marketing wise, he's very, very, very effective, I find, for the game, for that club as well.
Never had a bad story about him, never done anything stupid, has supported every coach that he's had at the Dragons, has stood by all his teammates.
He's drama-free, yeah.
He's just... Yeah, look, I
he's
think
a leader. Like,
he's definitely a leader. He's definitely a leader. Both for his club and his state.
Absolutely,
I think he's excellent. And I think, you know, let's hope he doesn't play for Queensland this year, but I think he will. All right, so thank you so much for talking to us about mental health. I think that was excellent and such a refreshing discussion to have, and I'm so glad we've had it.
That was that was very insightful.
Yeah, it was
excellent. Mean, if everyone's watching, that's a must watch.
And hopefully we can, Tareq will agree to come back on, you know, regularly so that we can continue to talk about these topics and help raise as much awareness as we can and talk about how the Doggies are going to beat the Cowboys this week.
Come on. Look, Cowboys by 12, all right?
Well, hang on, before we get into that, there's a few big things that happened last week or over the last week in rugby league. So first, before we get into it, I have a bone to pick with the bunker.
I knew it was coming.
It's coming.
The bunker is... What is going on with the bunker? I want to understand, are the refs, like you're in the bunker, you've got like 17 screens, you've got all the time in the world, you can use as many replays as you want, you still get decisions wrong. Are your eyes painted on? Like, we could put monkeys in there and probably get better decisions. What is wrong with you guys? Honestly, I'm so sick. Like, we have such a good competition, and then the bunker, like there must have been 6 or 7 really horrible calls that happened over the weekend. Honestly, it's you know,
how many people are in the bunker now?
You know,
is it back to 1? Because I know there was changes that happened.
It's 1 again.
Because he went 1 and then he went 2
Single
and then
opinion.
1.
Bro, just 1 monkey's enough. Just have 1 physical monkey. Get a monkey from Taronga Zoo, put him in there, and I guarantee you he'll give you a better result than the people we've got in the bunker right now.
It's tough, right? Because a lot of the decisions that were made,
you know,
you've got to understand the interpretation around.
You're gonna hate me for this, but I find it's the redheads that lose it completely. Because you know what, Fatty would exactly say what this guy did. God, it's like fair dinkum. Are their eyes painted on? Even Gus Gould, because he's really a redhead as well.
Bro, tell me, for 10 years, a player that runs inside a supporting player or a supporting player knocks over a defending player, that is a penalty against the offensive team 100% of the time for the last 10 years. Look, but with Sean Johnson and the Warriors, that's not a penalty. It doesn't make sense to me.
No one disagrees with you. I think Phil went out on the record and didn't disagree with what you're saying now. He's just saying, you know, the way exactly what you said, the way they've interpreted it for the last 10 years, that's a shepherd.
Bro, where's the consistency? Yeah. Why one week this way and 1 week the other way? It doesn't make sense. Like, how are we as fans supposed to understand how our team is going to play? How the coach is supposed to understand? How are the players supposed to understand?
Big breath.
No, it's, bro, I've had it with the bunker, honestly. You know, Manly and the Eel, like that Manly game.
Look, that game was in the balance. I can understand where he was coming from.
Manly should have won that game. That was a try. Against the Rabbitohs. Look, I hate Manly. So Manly losing is not a bad thing, but it's not fair. Like, I don't want to see teams lose unfairly. Yeah, it just ruins the game.
It has to be fair, right?
It has to be fair.
Elmo has a meltdown. Just further that segment.
Honestly, the bunker, it just gets to a point where you think to yourself, all right, when are they going to get this right? They've spent all this money on the bunker. They went 2 refs, 1 ref, 2 refs.
I've got a solution. I've got the best solution. You know what you do? You just install a button at the stadium for all the fans, and then they can have like a vote. Try, no try. And the majority goes with the majority.
I'm getting 50-50 every time, bro.
Every single time.
We're just as fickle. We're just as fickle as the rest and everyone. I'll tell you.
I'll tell you why they won't work for Roosters games, because they'll have none of their fans there, so they'll easily get outvoted. It's not going to happen.
Even no try. It'll be a no.
It won't happen. It won't happen.
Yeah. But you're right. I think the NRL needs to do a couple of things about the rules. Like, they need to be a bit clearer. But you're right. You know, for 10 years, they're ruling it in a certain way. And you know what? It's happened quite a bit in the last few years as well, where they've pulled a lot of those, like, oh no, it's try. It's like, hold on, but
Last week that wasn't.
Not even the last week. It's like Super Saturday. I just watched
the game wasn't
the 3 o'clock game, and that was a try. It's a 5:30 game now, and it's like 7:30. Like, hold on.
You know what's funny? The same day after Marnie got, that Marnie was
shepherded.
Whether he got there or not.
It's irrelevant, though.
Irrelevant because the way they've interpreted it.
Defender was impacted by the support player.
I think it should stay like that.
But then it's funny, the late game on Sunday, and honestly, look, not making an excuse because they did get blown off the park, but McInnes runs.
What was the score, sorry?
40. See, I lost count.
40 to 8.
I think I lost count.
Yeah, you turned it off by that point. You're like, nah.
Look, to my credit, I didn't tip him, but I didn't tip the margin that much. But anyway, McInnes runs past the ball. And into the player, his eyes may have been on the ball at the start, but then he runs past the ball into the St. George fullback that's contesting the ball, and McInnes doesn't even leave the ground and cannons into the player. Yeah. Somehow it's play on, it's a try.
No,
and I think that's when Cronulla took the lead.
Any day of the week. Like that's...
And you know, credit to the commentators on Fox, they said that's a no try. Yeah. Even about the Sean Johnson try, they said that's a no try every day of the week. Yeah. So commentators can see it, fans can see it, I'm sure players can see it, but it's the refs that want to understand the game in their own way. And then, like, for example, even the Viliami Kikau strip, right? They said he was playing at the hand, not at the ball. But the thing is, the bunker didn't look at all available angles. They didn't look at the rear angle that shows that he actually did strip the ball. Yeah. If that was a try, if that was awarded the try, we still had half an hour to be able to play at that scoreline and sort of direct our game towards winning from that scoreline. But it's like, how are you missing these things? Like, they're very simple misses that are happening, and at some point, someone has to be accountable. It's not like, because if you think about it, right, this is the tightest competition ever. So that means that even a try, even if it's not points, like winning points, just a try can make the difference in points difference from being in the 8 or not being in the 8. Right. So they need to get these things right. And I know refs on the field, when they make mistakes, I don't complain. You know why? Because it's in the heat of the moment. They make the mistake, they own it, move on. It happens in footy. But when the bunker makes that mistake, that's unacceptable, because you're there to be the last line of defense from making those mistakes. Yeah. And the thing is, you can't do a captain's challenge on a try like that, right? Yeah. You can't challenge that stuff.
How do you challenge a bunker that just rules?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you supposed to challenge?
In previous podcasts, we touched on it. Why don't we have an NFL style challenge? I know we said that it's time constraints, but this bunker does take forever.
Exactly.
I think in the NFL they have a time limit. I think it's a 1 minute. So why don't they implement the same thing into
like
the NRL?
NBA. They've got like a certain limit where they can watch the play and make a decision.
I think the same thing, like challenge the bunker on their call. Send your assistant coach down and they can have one adjudicator stand in the middle and whether overturn the decision or not, because
I think it's definitely something the NRL needs to
They need to look at it, yeah.
But it shouldn't be that complicated, right? I don't know if it needs to go that far.
Look, some of the decisions we've seen, they make it complicated.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah. Our game, honestly, rugby league is not a complicated game, but I feel like the bunker makes it complicated. Like, what are we paying $2 million a year for? Honestly, if the bunker's going to stuff up, get rid of it. Put those $2 million into grassroots or mental health and just be done with it, and let the refs on the field make the mistakes. And I'll live with those mistakes because the refs making them. And honestly, I think the refs this year, by and large, have been okay. I think better than most other seasons.
I think there were a couple of years where they were really terrible in terms of decision. But no, like you're
was
right.
That when they had the dual refs?
That started to get a bit wild.
Opinion on each side.
But then also the Todd Greenberg, when he came out and he said he wants a crackdown. I think it was 2021 when he wanted the crackdown on certain tackles, and they were giving away like 30 penalties a game.
Was that
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was the first 6 rounds or 4 rounds, and then you went from having 30 penalties a game, and then it just decreased to 10 out of nowhere.
Because now the refs are like, this is ridiculous, slowing that. Like, it
was nitpicking.
I think we're going in the right direction.
Were there like that year? That was one of the. That was. You know what that is? That's the passion. That's the fire.
I mean, it's the energy. It's the energy.
I'm a worrying feeling that's what's going to happen to Canterbury season.
Oh, what a big goal. Sorry, what was the score, Debo? That's what your score was.
A loss is a loss. Whether it's 16-14 or 40-8.
I disagree. 40-8 is a lot worse. Other big things, and we'll sort of shoot through these. The Eels want to buy a new fullback with X factor.
Hold on. Let's stop you for a moment.
Yeah.
What do you mean they want to buy a new fullback?
Bro.
Like, what's happening with Gutho?
Gutho saved a certain try on the weekend.
I thought he's been their best so far.
He's one of the best players they've had for years.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, he's like... It does weird celebrations.
Can I ask, if they're going to get a fullback, where does Gutho play?
Centre.
No, it doesn't work.
That's what I mean. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Do you remember Kurt Capewell made him into a speed bump in the State of Origin? Personally, I reckon Gutho was the reason we lost that series. Because somehow Fittler put him in the centres.
That was Fittler that made us lose that, not Gutho.
Yeah, but Gutho just kept getting towelled over. Like,
because it's the chemistry, right? It's about how you put your team together. And he's not a centre. And I think Gutho is incredible at fullback. I think week in, week out, he gives his heart for the Eels.
He's such a great support player. Yeah. He's a very good support player. He supports Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown excellently. He's always there in the right position. Like, what are the Eels thinking? Like, you re-signed Moses for God knows how much, I think for way too much, and now you want to weaken the most consistent position that you've had. What are you thinking? Leave Gutho alone. Yeah. You want to get an impact player, put him on your bench. You don't go out and tell your best player, your captain, we may replace you with an X factor. What are you doing?
That's what
I mean.
Can I say Dylan Brown wins his contract and run out?
I'm not sure.
Is it end of next season, I think?
I think that's what it is. I think maybe they're resigned to losing Dylan Brown I've heard rumblings before to the Warriors. Maybe Gutho's going to the 5'8" position because let's face it, Gutho can play in the halves.
He can, yeah.
Look, who are they going to get for fullback?
But mentally, like, imagine you're Gutho, right? And they're telling you, we're going to put you in the 5. We're going to get an X factor fullback.
Look, I don't think Gutho would.
You're not good enough. You're not good enough for fullback.
It's hard, right? Yeah. And I think you're right. I think Dylan Brown will leave.
Maybe they'll throw.
I hope not. I love Dylan Brown at the Eels because he came up at the Eels. He's played he's gone from being a player that plays maybe 40 to 50 good minutes a game to being an 80-minute 5'8" that links well. I mean, he's missing Isaiah Papali'i this year. You can tell on that right edge, he's missing Isaiah Papali'i, but I still think he'll warm into that with Ryan Madison coming back and then Sean Lane coming back. But look, at the end of the day, Gutho is Gutho. I don't like the Eels. I hate the Eels, but if we're fair, Gutho was a great player, and for management to come out and act the way they are, honestly, for me, it's like you guys have no idea.
But
they might have a game plan. Like I said, maybe Deal Bags is off to Warriors, possibly Gutho in the 5'8". You got Roger Tuivasa that possibly they might go for him.
Apparently they ruled him out. He's ruled out coming back to the NRL.
Rugby.
Yeah, apparently he's looking into that.
You're right there. Or you can possibly, there's the St. Helens fullback. Yeah. He's brilliant. He's in his early 20s. I thought it was Jack Wellesley, but it might be something else. I think Wellesley might be the 5'8" or something. Yeah. But that fullback is in his early 20s. I think he's now won 3 premierships in a row and a World Club Challenge.
Coming to the NRL, would they perform? And that's been a big thing for Super League players.
I saw him in the World Cup. He was great. I saw him against Penrith at Penrith Stadium.
Yeah.
Again, he's more than up to it.
Right? It's one. That's one game.
More than
a lot of Super League players come to the NRL and they just don't perform. Whatever it may be, right? It could be the environment, the style of play. Yeah. They're great in the Super League, but I just don't know if they're going to do as well.
I think they've got a few players that can cut it. And I saw that St. Helens side. They got their halves that can cut it. They got a centre. They got the fullback. They got a few forwards. They'll more than compete week in, week out. I think there's a generation of England players coming through.
That's awesome.
I think that's enough about the Eels, guys.
But the Eels have made some questionable decisions in the last,
Ryan Madison decided to miss 3 weeks and not pay $4,000. I will never, ever.
Apparently, now somehow he's found voice about 6 months later. He thought the trials got included.
Oh, come on. He's trying to save face because he knows what he did was silly.
Look, you know what?
He's a great player. That's the thing. He's such a good player. And while I don't think he would have saved the Eels from losing the first 3, I think he would have had a big impact because Sean Lane was out.
He did you proud against Penrith.
I agree.
He's defensively was everywhere.
He was excellent. And good on him. And that's why I was like, how does such a good player make such a daft decision? Like that for me, like how do the Eels management let him make such a bad decision? Like,
that's enough on the Eels.
It's done. It's not talk about the Eels anymore.
Sabald caught on the piss and asleep in Macca's. Just let him leave, guys. He's come back. He's doing a great job at Manly. He's doing well. Just, guys, honestly, it's funny and I wish him all the best. He was caught asleep on the piss. Look, I've never done that. I don't think any of you guys have ever done that. But people that drink and get on the piss, it happens. Leave him the hell alone.
That was very disappointing. Look, do you remember when he was at Southsend in Brisbane? Remember the media ran a campaign against him?
I still don't get that.
Media's a big reason
how they
for the mental
they got rid of him because they flipped him with Wayne Bennett at the time, right? I'm like, but why did you get? He was doing so well at the Rabbitohs. I don't know.
He was excellent at the Rabbitohs.
Brisbane gave him a good deal. He couldn't resist.
Yeah, but why did the Brisbane media treat him? Why did they cure him out and all that?
The media.
It was just about.
It was the News Corps.
I have a feeling there was like a political agenda behind getting rid of him because of Wayne. I don't know, but I look. I wish Seabold all the best. He's done well so far, and let the bloke get on the piss. And
he wants to get on the piss and sleep at.
We don't condone the alcohol, but if that's what he wants to do, let him enjoy it. Because
Cartwright was there. He was watching over him.
And the other thing is, like, one of the media outlets was like, "Oh, a Manly coach disgraces club." What the hell are you talking about?
So like he went and came out and said he got furniture from Bunnings, like the previous coach. I don't even get it. That's what you hit the nail on the head. It's all politics. If you got mates in the media, they'll make you either look good, or if you have no mates, they'll make you look bad. Or
do you think it's just? I just think they don't always necessarily have something to report on.
Yeah,
so they'll take something, and it's like and like why are you reporting that disgrace? I look at them like, it's pretty funny. It's funny.
Yeah, I find it funny.
He had a good night. Maybe has anybody checked in on him to see if he's all right? Like
But I mean, 2 days later, he was on 100% footy commentating, and he was as sharp as ever.
Oh, he was. How good was he?
He's always good.
He could host the show.
He's a very good speaker. He knows the game well. He's back at Manly coaching. Fucking give the guy a chance. Like, honestly, I'm so like, it just gets to me sometimes where you just don't want to, like, this guy has deserved this chance. He was going to give the game up, and then he had a chat with Phil Gould, and he went back and he took the opportunity. Good on him.
We don't condone coarse language.
Yeah. We'll cut that one out.
I apologize. And breaking news, Jack Wyden is saying he wants to go to the market, doesn't want to re-sign with the Raiders, and he's saying he's speaking to the Dolphins.
I don't blame him. I honestly don't.
I encourage players to go, challenge themselves, look for greener pastures, or just sit in the same system. Same thing with coaches.
Yeah.
I feel like the Raiders are like really stagnant. That's the way I see it. Is Ricky's been at the helm for a while.
I've actually now just ruled them out of my. I had them from the start. I think
they peaked against the Roosters that year, and I feel like it's like, look, I think it's time for maybe a bit of a change. And you know what? I think you should go on the market, see what else is out there for him.
I just feel like the Raiders are sort of not over that 2019 grand final loss, and I think Ricky, like. Ricky's a funny guy. Like, he's a legend of the game. He had some success as a coach, and I just don't know if he's still at the same level of some of those elite coaches. I just don't. I could be wrong, because I do think that the Raiders do have a good team, but like for them to go against the Knights, who have 8 of their best players out, and to lose, that's unacceptable. Like.
That could be complacency as well. Like, when you're stuck in the same thing over and over, you've got the same structure, the same team. I feel like Ricky might do well by going somewhere else.
They need to be reinvigorated.
Sort of restart. Yeah, that's right. That's what I think he needs.
I think the Eels need to swap with the Raiders. Brad Arthur go to the Raiders.
No more about the Eels.
Look, Ricky had his turn at Parramatta. We know how that.
Yeah, everyone's had their turn at Parramatta.
But honestly, I highly encourage players to go out, see what's on the market. I think I'm with you in terms of the younger ones, making sure that they keep the juniors and take care of them. Yeah. But ultimately, you got to think about the player, right? How long are they playing the NRL for? 12, 13, 15 years.
If they're lucky.
And then it's like, they've got to set themselves up as well. You've got to take care of yourself, your family, and go out. And sometimes you just need to change.
Yeah, change.
And it could be, it's not just always about the money. And that's a big thing. I get it. People, want more money, but I don't think it's always about the money. Sometimes I need a change of environment. I need to get out of where I'm in. I need to start a new life somewhere else, meet new people. I can still be friends with where I was.
Yeah, of course.
But I need to change.
I mean, who would want to be coached under Wayne Bennett? Look what he's done with the Dolphins.
The insight he just gave, perfect.
Yeah. Wayne Bennett, the Dolphins, can I just say, I didn't tip them to be in the 8.
Me either.
Because they didn't have any, X factor, major signing, Fido, the Hammer. I was devastated they left the Cowboys.
Roster.
That's what it is.
They had a balanced roster.
And you know what? I think Wayne Bennett knows how to get the best out of a team. We were talking about how great Phil Gould is as an administrator in rugby league. To be honest, I think that Wayne Bennett will go down as the Alex Ferguson of rugby league. He
definitely is. Yeah.
He's the Alex Ferguson.
Or Craig Bellamy.
No.
See, Wayne Bennett has gone now. This is his 4th club, right? And 3 clubs, he's taken them to a grand final. And he took the Dragons to a grand final. He literally performed miracles. He parted the Rugby League C to make...
You're a Dragons board, aren't you? That was one of the most boring grand finals in history.
Look, they won scoring 16 points a game.
Defense.
That was the average.
Yeah, it's one of them.
You
know what? Canterbury, I'll tell you what I was noticed with Canterbury this year. Their defence, they haven't really leaked points besides that first game, and it was just a wild and soft, but they've really got their defense together, and the attack will come. Defense wins your games.
Yeah. So then, very quickly, so Ali signs a massive $1.6 million contract with rugby. I think we all saw it coming, and good on him.
Good on him.
But why? What was it? The Roosters were trying to sign who they were keeping Manu.
Look, you got
take over. Is that what it is?
No,
or just
it was Tedesco. So they re-signed Tedesco until I think he's signed now until 2025. But I think honestly, I don't think Suwali would have stayed in rugby league anyway. Suwali, because 1.6 million, like he's making $5 million over 3 years. He'll go play in the World Cup and then he'll come back
if he wants.
Look, and he'll only be 26.
I think if the Roosters really wanted him, they could have kept him.
Yeah,
honestly,
they worked hard.
I think. Look, they got Manu there. They got a few other players.
Well, the salary cap's about 30 million, anyways. So.
They got.
They don't have a salary cap. That's a sombrero.
Look, if they wanted, they could have kept him.
Brown paper bags.
Look, I'm saying, look, he's a good player.
He's great.
He's a great player, but I think the Roosters thought that we can always source players.
Is he 1.6 million great though? Like
now, not yet.
Not yet.
You gotta work your way there. That's what I think. I think is he going to be worth that? Absolutely. I think he will. He's only 20, 21 or something like that.
Yeah, something like
20,
so,
I think.
yeah, he's still young.
Yeah.
So I think definitely he's going to be there. He's going to be up there.
He'll come back as well.
But Tedesco's would you replace Tedesco with Suwali?
I don't think so. 1-2 years
with the fullback these days, you got to have a ball playing element to your repertoire.
But is Suwali a ball player?
I think he's more of a runner.
Yeah, he's more of a runner.
He'd suit more like an NFL, receiver.
Yeah.
Kick returner or something
San Francisco.
like that.
Bro, who knows? They've got James these days. Jane has.
I still think Swiley in the centres is his best position.
Yeah.
I mean, you really got to have in your repertoire these days.
That's right. Absolutely.
But look, good on you, Swiley. Wish you all the best in rugby, and we hope to see you back at the.
I love watching him play. He puts the hits on. I mean, I just think the Roosters thought, we can get players of similar ability for much less, so they just let him go. Yeah. They could have kept him if they wanted.
And he was originally from rugby union, wasn't he?
He was, right?
And they offered him like a really small contract at the time, and now they're paying
like... came in and then the Roosters. But look, if you get the opportunity, let's be honest, like even in whatever field you're at, if you get offered, a lot more money to play, even, to do less than what you're doing, like... Bro.
Rugby unions played more internationally than the league.
Yeah, exactly.
And they can go to Japan for 16 weeks
get $1 million,
a season. They get like $1 million, $1 million.
I think this will probably end up happening after his next contract expires with the Wallabies. If they don't top him over, they'll probably still pay him a decent salary and then allow him in the off-season to play in Japan.
Yeah, why not?
Woods swapped for Viliami, Fifita and Alec Tuitavaki
that's
with
like,
Manly Seagulls.
You know what that is? That's like... swapping your Datsun or your Nissan Bluebird for a Porsche or something.
Two.
It's two. That's what it felt like.
What was it? Why?
So Aaron Woods, I think gone to Manly.
No, but I mean,
I think I think the Blacktown needed more experience. Is
that what it is? Is that what it is? Is it experience? Because Woods had lots of experience in the NRL, but I don't know.
He hasn't played a game for the Dragons, and they got belted against the Broncos and belted again. So
Look, it's probably a change he needed as well. So
I think
it's a change that I think Fifita Manly confirmed that he was going to play first grade this year. So I think it's a good coup for the Dragons.
I think
they've given him a 3-year deal, and Tuitavaki, the other fella's on a development contract for 2-year deal.
Beautiful.
No upgrade.
They've got potential on them, so it'll be good because the Dragons can't seem to attract anyone. So
no, you're not wrong there. You're spot
even
on.
Moses Suwali said
Sully, yeah.
No,
I think that's
Sully. Sorry, Sully.
And everyone's bagging him out, but continue.
Sorry, he said that he actually didn't even want to come to the Dragons. He wanted to stay at Manly.
And everyone's bagging him out like he said something wrong, but they're just missing what he actually means. I think Mario Tak came out and actually explained it further, but Sully's right. Dragons are a club that don't seem to attract players. And it's been like that for a while.
What is it, the culture? Do you think it's the culture at the club? What do you think it is?
It's not the culture. It's just the personnel you have there. I think the Dragons actually haven't been able to attract someone for probably 40 or 50 years. It's no joke.
It's the instability in the coach, but then it's always the warring factions between Illawarra and St. George.
If you go back before that, even when they were separate entities, I know St. George has a rich history, but they probably didn't really attract anyone for the last 40 years.
Yeah, but how good is their junior base?
Illawarra's a better junior base. If you're referring to St. George, no, Illawarra's a stronger junior base. St. George got for what they got at their disposal, they probably punch above their weight.
Yeah.
But Illawarra's where their strength is. But again, saying they're not the front runners. There's other strong junior bases as well out there.
That's right.
So on that, they've given apparently Hook has 6 games to keep his position for the year, which he has to reapply for at the end of the year. If I was Hook, I'd walk out. Honestly,
why would you?
Who would you reach out to?
There's Haslam or Shane Flanagan. I think that they come with a unique style I think that Des can actually develop a DNA, but even Shane Flanagan can. And I think one of the problems with the Dragons is I think they've lost who they are as a team. They need to build that up.
You think so?
Yeah,
I would go what he said. I probably favour Des, but can I say...
or go for Jason Riles.
I was about to say, if Jason Riles really wants the job, give it to him, because Craig Fitzgibbon at Cronulla, you know, what does everyone think? You still think you need guys in their 60s or late 50s coaching? You know, yeah, they're still there, but there's the guy that's in his late 30s or early 40s, you know, knocking on the door. They want that go.
Yeah.
And Jason Riles worked under Bellamy for many years, worked under
He's done his apprenticeship.
Worked in, and to be honest...
And he's increased his average attributes.
I think he is.
He's more than ready.
And I think the style of the game has changed.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing against the coaches that, you know, like I was mentioning before with Desi, right? I think Desi's one, again, going down as one of the greats.
I reckon Fords make better coaches. That's just my personal opinion.
You know, like just the style of play, it becomes a bit predictable because the style of the game is changing.
And
it's quick. It's a lot quicker now than what it was 20, 30 years ago. And you're right, maybe it's time for a new young coach. Like Craig Fitzgibbon, what's he doing at the Sharks?
And
Amazing. Like,
and he attracted players straight away.
Yeah. But I mean, Craig Fitzgibbon been under Trent Robinson for what?
But Fitzy always had the people skills. Even when he was a player, he was well liked by the media and other players. He just had that people's management skills.
And look, even I know it's early days for Cameron Ciraldo, but I think even the shift in the thinking of the Bulldogs players, like we've lost 2 games. One, we got blown out of the park, and that was just we weren't ready, right?
I wouldn't say he's got blown out of the park. He's in it up to half time.
It was a bad result. Bad result, right?
Bad result, yeah.
But we lost to the Warriors by 2 points, and there was a decision that was a poor call. But we lost, but we were in it, and we didn't even play at 50%.
A game you let go.
The last couple of years.
Compared to the last couple of years where we weren't able to score points, we weren't able to defend, we weren't able to do anything. And the new age of coaches, and even at Todd Payten, like you can't forget, Todd Payten is an incredible coach. And sure, the past few weeks have been great. The first few weeks for the Cowboys, but make no mistake, they'll be there at the end of the year.
They're still winning without playing great. That's a worrying sign for other teams. They're winning without playing great.
And
same thing. Look, Penrith. I know what are they 1 and 2.
Yeah,
and the other 2 they lost narrowly, but they haven't even hit their straps.
Absolutely.
And if they hit their straps,
they lost
like the Cowboys.
Right, like you've lost 2 of the best. Like in their positions, they were probably the best in the game. Arpi and Kickout, like they were incredible, and to lose them and to still be, you know, somewhat competing, man.
But those sides are going to hit their straps.
They will.
They 100%.
will. It's early days, like you said.
It is.
And even with the Dogs,
it's worrying when they're going to hit their straps, unless we get a close competition.
I have to mention, the Warriors. I am so impressed and proud of the Warriors. I really, really hope the Warriors keep going, even if it means that that they're competing with the Dogs, for example, at the end of the season.
It's a win-win.
I want to see them make the 8.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a win-win for the whole NRL.
I love the Warriors. The NRL should do more to support the Warriors. I do think that 2024, if things can go right, they should have 80 or 90% of their games in New Zealand. I don't care. Make it happen. They deserve it. They are the stone that literally kept the NRL running for 2 years. I'm so proud of the Warriors.
Their families, you know, their close people around them, and staying in hotels. And
just almost as much as I want the Doggies to do well, I want the Warriors to do well. And you know what? If they were given more spot by the NRL, you know, we could one day see another team in New Zealand, and that would be amazing. Like the game against the Doggies, there were more people at the Warriors and Bulldogs game than there was at the Blues game.
Wow. Yeah.
You know,
rugby union's always been game.
And rugby union is the dominant sport.
It's the main sport in New Zealand.
So it's great to see. Last point, we've said closest competition since the game started, which is excellent. But Bunker, please pull your socks up. You're ruining it for everyone.
I think that's been the first point you made of the whole year, and it's still going. I mean, I don't blame the guy, but you know, Paul
got to get you some relaxation techniques.
You know what? Can we have a list of our top 10 favorite redhead players over the years?
We'll do it for next week. But what's it called? Keep us accountable. We'll have our top 10 favorite players, redhead players in the NRL.
Can we get highlights of Elmo just talking about the bunker, like just little snippets, and just like I reckon we can make it a whole hour.
Go
This whole podcast is just going to be
bunker. What are you doing in the bunker?
I can't wait for this.
Some really good news. Angus Crichton is back at training, and they're saying that his mental health is back in check, and hopefully
Yeah.
he'll be able to play again for the Roosters very soon, which is I think,
I'm excited to see him play. I'm sure he'll be raring to go.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a feel-good story.
good for the NRL.
Tough player, like going.
I'm
through
glad
what
he's
he went
back.
through
It's a
and-
feel-good story.
And I'm glad that they handled it well.
I
Like the
think they
NRL,
handled, yeah.
the Roosters.
They respected
and I
his
think
privacy.
get the support that he needs. And I'm glad to hear that he's back at training.
Absolutely.
And
I look
everything,
forward to seeing him. I think the Roosters are a much poorer team with him not there.
Yeah.
I think he's very dynamic and he's strong run of the ball. You know, he has an offload. He has, I'm glad to see him back and I hope he does well. Really, really hope he recovers well. Okay. Now we're going to do a quick review of the previous round, which the bunker absolutely destroyed.
Here we go. The bunker.
I can't help, bro. Parramatta against Penrith, 17-16.
You know what? Yeah, go ahead.
Look, I was going to say good game. What a field goal by Nathan Cleary. I don't know if it's the best one ever, but it has to be up there.
The class. Like Nathan Cleary is young.
That was
like,
one shot.
But do you see how calm and
One shot
composed
to
he
make
was?
it. Yeah.
And from that far out, he didn't even look stressed.
Bro, it was 45 metres
Yeah,
out.
and
That's like, the 3-pointer that comes in, you got to go shoot to either tie the game.
that was the clutch moment.
That was a Stephen Curry,
0.1 second left.
Yeah,
that was
that's
what it was.
It was
Clay
a clutch
Thompson.
moment. It really was a clutch moment. And
Kobe.
he's such a...
One of the best clutch moments in
Amazing.
modern NRL. And I've got to say, as you said, he's very young. And even at the celebration, his celebrations it wasn't over the top. It was cool, calm, collected, and he was ready to win. It was a shame how it ended. And everyone's saying Moses, Mitchell Moses is back because he kicked that field goal 15 metres out. Look, Moses still has a lot to prove this year.
Yeah.
Sure, he kicked 1,000
helped him,
kick
but-
meters. It helped him, but
It's all about consistency, right?
Look,
and that's
you
what's
know,
important.
that's what's
Parramatta
important.
surprised me that game because I felt they actually outplayed their opponents, Penrith. The
Yeah, but
forwards.
that's the thing about
They held the
Parramatta.
ball well as
They
well.
win when it
They
doesn't
can
matter.
be on their day.
Just when the finals
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
On their day, Parramatta can be one of the worst teams to come against.
I had them 0-5, and look, that was a very, very good performance by Parramatta. I know Penrith haven't hit their straps, but to be 0-3 playing against the Premiers,
Yeah, it was
a good performance. Unfortunately, the scheduling Thursday.
poor scheduling, man.
Look, the crowd was still decent, but it probably would have been better if it was a Friday night game or maybe a Saturday
You know
night.
what? I agree with you because like last Sunday, I'm just like, why are these games on a Sunday afternoon? Like,
honestly,
they
agree
need
with
to
you.
change a couple of things, maybe. Well, it's hard, right? Getting the schedule right.
That's why I don't put it on there.
Yeah.
I know how difficult it can be to do a schedule, and they're paying a lot of money to have the right.
Look, personally, I think they've done a wonderful job the NRL last 3-4 years under that new admin and obviously the challenging conditions they've had.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
look, we're behind you guys, so keep it up.
Yeah,
And as much as we criticize the NRL, you best believe we're still going to watch it. It's just in our blood. That's it.
Oh man, Melbourne and West Tigers. I thought West Tigers did well to sort of come back.
Look,
Melbourne's still a little bit off. I think.
West Tigers lost to a depleted Melbourne.
Yeah.
And the only positive for West out of that game is they didn't get blown off the park against a depleted side. So I don't know if you can call that a positive or not, but it's
I think the
dire
Tigers will
straits.
take anything they can get.
Absolutely. But like some of the things that they did, like losing the ball on scrum, like
yeah.
you're in the offensive position and you lose on the scrum. Like, the Tigers, long season for the fans. I'm just saying.
Look, Tim Sheen's
I don't
he's
need
not
to laugh,
panicking, but
He's not, but you got to start thinking about what's next because something has to change.
What if Tim Sheen's experiment fails? What happens to Benji and Farah?
Yeah.
Do they look towards a whole different setup? Like,
do they go for Flanagan after or Des or?
I think that's what they should have gone with to begin with. I don't know why they.
Or
Bit
you
of
know what?
nostalgia?
I just thought they should have just gave it to. I just
nostalgia? Is that what it is?
thought they should have just given it to Benji straight away and Farrell could
Yeah,
be his
I'm with
assistant.
you. I'm with you 100%.
But do you think it's nostalgia going back to 05? You've got Sheens, you've got Benji, you've got
I do
Robbie
think- I
Farah.
do
And it's
think
like,
that-
They got that part wrong, but I think we had Omar Slamunkel here a few weeks ago, and he pointed out Robbie Farah was probably one of the best defensive players in the game during his career.
Yeah.
And Benji, obviously, we all know he was one of the best
Incredible.
attackers. So I know
Why would you need
Tim's-
Tim Sheens to be
I
there?
know he's done it all, but he's 72 and 10 years out of the game. So
Yeah.
surely Benji and
do you think that might be getting in the way? Just sort of the strategy and the perspective can be getting in the way? Because obviously he makes the shots, right? Ultimately, he makes the
I wonder
decisions.
how Robbie and I mean they won't say, but Robbie and Benji, what would they say?
They'll definitely be frustrated. I think the Tigers are gonna go through a bit of a resurgence a little bit later in the year when some teams start getting injuries and stuff if they can keep their players on the park. But it's very sad to see the team going through it. Like we were there last year and the year before, and it's always been Doggies, Tigers, and before that it was Doggies, Tigers, Broncos. I want to see the Tigers get out of that. I want to see the Tigers succeed because I think their fans deserve it. Their players deserve it. Like sure, the players aren't performing, but like at the end of the day, the players, you see them. They put 100%. Like, as much as we want to say Luke Brooks isn't working, the bloke does not stop. That's why I think if he was to change teams, I think any team that gets him will be lucky, because I do think he has the ability. It's just at the Tigers, he's played 200 games there. It's just unbelievable that he would have played 200 games at a club that's probably hasn't wanted him for 150.
When was the last time they made the finals?
2011.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Look, I like the thing I like of what Tim Sheen's during the week. They threw the whole Luke Brooks question out of, into him, and he absolutely cut him off.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, he's in my side. That shouldn't even be a question. He absolutely just burnt him. That was brilliant.
Yeah. Next game, Broncos and Dolphins. What a game.
Match of the round.
Oh, bro, match of the year. Like,
I won't lie to you, I was heartbroken for the Dolphins.
Tony Staggs, I think, that try, he needed something like that to decide the game, I thought. Look, Payne Haas, wow, again, man of the match, powerhouse performance.
Let me tell you, he's shaping up to be, I want to say, like the Glenn Lazarus of our
I think he surpassed him already.
But I think if Payne Haas can stay on this trajectory, big call, I know, but I think if he can stay consistent like this for the next 5, 6, 7 years, he will be the best prop that's ever played the game. Hands down, this guy, he's 22, 23?
Yeah, I think so.
He's so young. And you
think he's about 27, 28.
You think he's at his peak.
I thought that a few years ago.
And forwards don't peak until they're 27, 28. So can you imagine this guy in 5, 6 years? And he plays 60 minutes.
They've just got to manage his minutes.
As long as they manage his minutes, he will be the best full time.
I actually think the Broncos will be up there end of the year. Like Broncos, Dolphins.
I couldn't wait for this game, and I like the rivalry it's created, because post game, I don't know if you saw, the Broncos came out with a tweet for the Dolphins. They'll post up directions from Suncorp back to Redcliffe. And look, last year I spent months in Brisbane, and for the fans that live in Sydney and other places that don't know where Redcliffe is, it's on the north side of Brisbane, on the edge of the Moreton Bay.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing about Redcliffe: it is an absolute shithole.
Wow.
Big call.
You heard it here first from Dibbo.
But
he thinks it's a shit.
The Dolphins have actually, like, getting into the NRL is going to help Redcliffe develop, because a lot of the people
big junior base up there. I just wear Redcliffe
also for the city, but also for the city. They've actually said, they're grateful that the Redcliffe's gone into the NRL, which I think is great. But I think it's going to be good for the community there. They can pour a lot more money into the infrastructure. Create like a second CBD.
I can't wait. I can't wait till Brisbane gets a third side.
Yeah. Honestly, I think 100% that is the right call.
South Queensland Crushers?
No. I think it'll be Brisbane. They need a side on the east side, Brisbane East. They need one there. And you can also have one towards Ipswich.
Yeah.
And you also need one in Souths, where the Logan area is.
Yeah.
So you'd probably end up with 4 or 5.
You think they'll get there?
They're a 2 million plus population. Sydney's, and eventually Brisbane will easily hit 4 million.
Yeah.
But do you think another Brisbane team or a Perth team first?
I think go Perth.
I'll tell you what's going to dictate. It's going to be the TV rights still.
That's what it is.
Because if all of a sudden you get thrown massive bucks from some broadcasters in New Zealand, you then get the Brisbane side first.
Because you've got to look at the financial sustainability of it all, right?
I know
and that's why the Dolphins were selected, right?
But Perth has a really good backing over there from some big businesses.
They've got a good junior base. They've had it for a while.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, you look at, we've said this before, every time a game is played in Perth, packed out. I want to see a truly national rugby league, not an Eastern rugby league.
You want to see that. You want to see it happen in South Australia.
I would love a South Australian team.
The only issues is the time zones. The timing.
They'll make it work.
If AFL can make it work,
have to be all the early games.
But let me tell you, if AFL can make it work, if AFL can make 2 Perth teams and 2 Adelaide teams work, I think we can make a 1 and 1 Perth.
You know how it will work. You'd probably have. Let's go off Australian Eastern Standard Time. So you'd have a 5 p.m. game and then you have a 7 p.m. game and a 9 p.m. game. So the 9 p.m. game would actually be about 6 or 7 o'clock
Perth
in WA.
Yeah, that's right.
And the 5
or you could even do that on a Friday.
2 p.m. or a 3 p.m.
Or you could do that on a Friday or even a Sunday.
Yeah, but New Zealand Warriors, they 2-3, depending on that.
No, I'm just saying your biggest viewership's the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah. But if they can make it work in New Zealand time-wise, because it's like 2-3 hours, they'll make it work.
So they play 2 hours early.
But I'm saying they can do that.
They can make it happen there, they'll make it happen here. You know what I mean? So if it's 2 p.m. here, it's 4 or 5 p.m. in New Zealand. Like you said, a 9 p.m. game would be nice. Like it's 6, 7 p.m.
Friday, Saturday, or even Sundays. It would actually work.
And I think that would then mean that we'd get one free-to-air game on a Saturday, which means we'd have 4 free-to-air games and 9 or games per round, which you think about what that will do for the game, and more money will go into, and also that's a new breeding ground for rugby league players in Perth that now have a path to NRL.
Absolutely,
Imagine what that does.
If you have a population boom in Western Australia and they do have the resources, then it's a no-brainer. You got to have it there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We just got to see.
Get rid of the 2 p.m. Sunday game, make it a 4 p.m., a 6 p.m.,
No, you'd still
and
need
an
a
8
2.
p.m.
You'd still need a
but
2.
I'm not a big fan of the 2 p.m. Sunday game.
I actually don't mind it.
I don't mind it, but it's not like I love when it's a 6:30 game. You know, like you watch 4
Anything
o'clock.
after 4 p.m. is good for
it's
me.
great because 6:30 it's
I
Sunday
still need
night.
an early game because tradition was, even growing
That's
up,
what
I used
it
to
is,
watch-
yeah.
Look,
I
I
used
think
to
all
watch
time
the
the more
midday
games, the
AFL
better.
Yeah, the more games, the better.
more
Everybody's
games, the
happy.
better. Just
as long
listen,
as they're all live
we want
and they're
more
not happening
games.
at the same time.
as long as they're spread out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Spread out.
Next game, we had North Queensland and Gold Coast. It was good to see North Queensland win despite lose. Actually, I think that they were
Down a
behind at
Titans blew this,
at
Honestly,
halftime.
but they did lose Kieran Forum and Brimson, and that's
And
their
that I
attack.
think. Look,
They had
I as a diehard Cowboys supporter, I'm not very impressed this year.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're hitting their straps like they did last year. They can be very frustrating to watch as a supporter, right? Because against the Titans, you're right. I actually think if Foreign and Brimson stayed on, it was a different game. I personally think because you saw the trajectory change.
Yeah.
They're uninspiring at the moment, but you guys, I don't know why, similar to them, although they're not using Canterbury's not using their bench properly. I don't know. The coach has to explain that. But your bench looks, he's missing a lot of players, or I don't know.
So Drinkwater's injured. You've got like Hiku's injured. So you have a few injuries happening.
He's had mind you, Tamo had a good stint when he came on.
He got injured as
But
well.
he's got Granville and Tamo, they're guys in their mid-30s on the bench.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I mean, look, all due respect, I think Granville's done a lot for the Cowboys, but
Oh, he's done
I think it's
Probably time.
probably his time. Maybe end of this year.
And I think once they get their team back and they start to click, but I just find watching the Cowboys sometimes it's a bit frustrating. Like,
What do you think it is?
sometimes like they grind so much and they hold a lot of possession and they don't come up with the result, and that really annoys me.
Gold
Right?
Coast were getting the upper hand when they had 4 men. Brimson, I think, Brimson. I think
Brimson's
his ball skills are amazing.
I
He's
reckon
the
he's
best
one
playing
of
fullback.
the I think he's one of the most underrated.
I think he's. Look, if
Fullbacks
they don't
in the
go
NRL.
Walsh,
Honestly,
Brimson
he's-
for Queensland.
I think he's definitely one of the most underrated players.
Underrated player in
Absolutely.
NRL. But look, I think the Cowboys will hit their straps. Payton's done an amazing job.
Yeah.
Drinkwater is an X factor for the Cowboys.
Unbelievable.
As soon as you see him come on, you see the difference. But one thing I've noticed about the Cowboys,
I
they're
can't
hot and
believe
cold.
Melbourne let him
Yeah.
go.
Hot and cold.
Do you think that the teams are figuring out the Cowboys? Like, for example, Nanai last year scored 17, 18 tries, sort of, taking the off the kick, for example, getting in and amongst it and stuff. I feel like maybe they're being a little bit figured out. Do you think that could be-
Nanai's scoring again, right? He's
Yeah.
starting to score again,
Okay.
But I do think sometimes our attack can be very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It's very predictable.
Yeah.
It's like I'm watching the game and look, I played rugby league. I know I'm sitting there with my Coke Zero and my chips and got a bit of a gut going and I'm like, oh, do this and do that. But at the same time, like,
Hey, you're a fan. You're entitled to do
I
that.
got to criticize, like sometimes it can be predictable.
Yeah.
Like Dearden, right? I think he's young. He's incredible. Like coming from the Broncos, I actually think he hasn't hit straps
He's
yet.
playing with confidence.
He's 21.
Yeah,
He's 21. And I think the Broncos regret losing him.
Look, they knew his abilities. Just I think he was up
But I
for
mean,
it.
look, Ezra Mem now, so
He was there.
He's been so good.
Ezra Mem was
But when
incredible.
Dearden first came to the Cowboys, I'm like, oh man, this
You mean too?
player.
No, but
Yeah.
Brisbane knew his potential. It's just that I think he was there when Seabold was there. Or-
Yeah.
I think that's when they got rid of Tyson Gamble, they got rid of Dearden, they got rid of Turpin, they got rid of all these sort of fringe players that they had too many
They weren't part of the
chefs.
plan.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
they
there was
just
sort
weren't
of
part of the
too many
future.
chefs spoiling the broth, and they thought we'll just get rid of some of these excess players and focus. So it's not too bad. But his rise last year, especially in Origin, I didn't think he had it in him to continue to play into the NRL. But
And
wow.
such a good
Even made
player,
he's even uplifted the halfback with him, who
Yeah.
had a torrid few
Yeah.
seasons at Cronulla.
But I mean,
Chad Townsend.
Chet Townsend, yeah.
I mean, again, they yet to hit their straps, but I think it was a good win to come
It
back
is.
from behind.
And
so.
I think the Cowboys will start to find their rhythm a bit. It's still early days, right?
Yeah,
Round 4,
round
and I still
5
think
now,
that there's a couple of teams that are trying to figure it out, like to try and put it together. Yeah.
I think, look, to be honest, out of say the 17 teams, honestly, I think only 5 are looking set at the moment, and everyone
Yeah.
else is still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It could very drastically turn, but yeah, what you're saying, it's how it's looking at the moment. So
There's a long way to go, which is
Yeah.
good. And we're already this excited.
If
into
it's this
season.
good 4 rounds in, like just imagine what else is to come,
South to Manly, Bunker. honestly.
Here we go.
Refs. Look, that was a ref decision, and I understand it.
2 touchies and a ref on the field. Come on, man.
Like somebody's got to pick that
No
up,
one knows that's a full, but it's gone back.
It's unfortunate. It is what it is. If it was a bunker decision, I'd be a lot more critical, but it was the refs on the field. I am critical, but I'm willing to let referee decisions go.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Especially if you're on that like you got to understand the touches are running in a certain angle.
That's right.
The ref's running at a certain angle. So sometimes it's just the interpretation, the way that we see things. Our eyes can trick us sometimes,
Absolutely.
right? So just sort of seeing it from a certain angle, it might have looked forward. And you're right, we were talking about this before. Maybe it's time for the rule to change. Because for as long as I remember, right, I've been watching league for 26 years of my life. It's always been the video referee, the bunker, hands off. Sorry, look, it's obvious it's a forward, but the rule is we can't say anything about it.
Honestly, I'm actually, while I would love the bunker to get involved, I don't trust that they'll make the right decision anyway. So probably keep the bunker away from the forward passes.
Let's bring in the VR.
This game, Manly, I thought they were the better side. They let it get away from him. And it just took Cody Walker. I know a lot of people don't like him, but he's the ultimate competitor. Doesn't give up.
Yeah.
And it was in the end, it just came to basically 2 plays from him. So Cody Walker magic, it just got him home in the end.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I was
it takes moments like that or players like that just to keep you in the game.
Honestly, that first try.
Everyone giving up.
Bro, I can't believe he scored that. I was like, no way, that's a try.
Everyone
Everyone was running back to the
yeah.
20, and he actually got it down. And I was watching, I'm thinking, damn,
He does
Look, despite that call, I still love the game. That was such a good finish.
was
I was like, I'm
great
on the edge of my seat. Like, this is good. You know?
But I think, like, Manly, they've had a good start, but I don't think they're as good as their form currently suggests. I still think they have a long way to go, but they're looking good, and I think Sabold's done a good job. So, next game, Warriors won by 2 points. Yeah. I'm gonna say, look, the Dogs I think played at below 50%. I don't think the Dogs played very well, and this is probably the main talking point out of the game, and it's not the Sean Johnson try. It's the fact that Cameron Ciraldo is not using the bench rotation properly. Yeah. It doesn't. I don't understand what is happening. Why is Cameron Ciraldo not playing people that he's chosen? Like Jaden Tanner didn't play.
He's usually using 2.5 minutes. So one guy doesn't use, the other guy puts him on for 3 or 4 minutes.
Like why
it's like he'd even use the third man.
And you can see the fatigue though in the Dogs, and it happened with the Tigers.
And it's not a
one-off hot day.
It happened with Manly.
It happened with Manly.
And it happened with the.
It's happening like almost every game.
Yeah. And in the first half, I thought the Dogs attacked well, they defended well, and the Warriors went with them. Yeah. I have to say, the Warriors, it was an excellent game. It could have been half time.
I know they were up 8-0. It could have easily been 14-0 or 20-0 because for that first 20-25, the Warriors offered nothing in attack because the Dogs' defense was just absolutely swamping them.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you think it's a fatigue that kicks in
Absolutely.
and it just sort of holds them back?
They did start falling away towards the end of the first half and the back end of the second half as well. So
and with the Tigers, same thing happened. You saw it was 40 degrees that day, but you saw him sort of wavering away.
He didn't play that day. I think he didn't play Jaden Rockenball. Right? Why would you have a player on the bench and not use him in 40-degree heat?
I don't get it.
And the thing is, like, it's starting to become apparent a couple of things. Viliami Kikau is excellent for 65 minutes, but then he's not an 80-minute player at the Bulldogs yet. What I mean by that is that at the Panthers, the workload was shared around a lot more, and Kikau could choose when to inject himself, or he had Luai sort of giving him good early ball, and Kikau could sort of not have to be involved so often. Whereas at the Bulldogs, you see Kikau making more of the tough work, more of the grind, more of the back-to-back tackles, more of the hard runs, whereas I don't think he needs to do that, Penrith. And I don't think he's an 80-minute player. The other thing that I think is starting to affect us is our right side attack with Averillo and Kiraz is good, but I think Averillo against the Warriors had a really poor game defensively. Yeah. I think incredibly poor game defensively. It was one bad game. I think overall he's had 3 decent games. He needs to fix up his defense because otherwise he's got a couple of players in Reggie's that are chomping at the bit to get. Like we've got Declan Casey there, who I think would make an incredible centre in place of Averillo. I'm not saying we should get rid of him, but I think, he just had a really poor defensive game against the Warriors.
I think the Dogs are a side on the rise. Like every week they're improving. Look, the combinations just got to get used to each other.
Agreed.
I know it's 4th or 5th round. They're improving every week. Like
but you can see the confidence.
People can try to mock or whatever, point at the negatives and all that. But it's inevitable. They are going to make that 8. They're on the rise. And if you look towards next year, they've got Crichton who will probably slot in at fullback. You've got Bronson Sherry who will probably take another centre position or maybe on the wing.
Yeah.
Averillo will probably slot in somewhere, but It's looking better and better. You got a few players to come back from injury. So
one of the things about Averillo that I'm worried about is if he doesn't cement himself as a centre or in a particular position, I'm worried he's going to become another Mbai. So Mbai, went from halfback to 5'8" to hooker to fullback.
And he's still
to
stuck in
centre.
that cycle too.
And
now.
at the Dragons,
even went to the Tigers, he was stuck in that cycle. And the Dragons,
and that's what I worry for Averillo.
Yeah.
I don't want Averillo to become that player because I think he shows the athleticism, and I've seen that he's got this explosion out of dummy half on the defense's line where he's going to sneak in and put that try.
he's very quick. He's probably
very, very
what
quick.
is he, the quickest player in the team?
No. Well, we got Josh Adokar.
I forgot about Adokar, but he'd probably be up there in the top three. He's very,
He's very quick, very athletic.
But I
he'd be
think,
quicker
like-
than most players in the game.
Like, just seeing, even the rivalry with the Dogs since I was a kid.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I love seeing that the confidence is starting to come up. And you know what I love? That they're playing in Belmore.
Yeah.
Keep those coming. Like, keep regularly playing games at Belmore. And I know people that aren't even Dog supporters.
They're just
And we're going to go to the game at Belmore. Like, we love the
it's like
environment.
that. It's like that at most suburban grounds.
Yeah, most suburban grounds.
Like people just
I'll get a
Have you watched an afternoon game at Leichhardt Oval? Whoa, wow.
I hate that ground.
I love it. It's just...
It's a
I
ground.
hated playing at it, and I hated sitting in the stands and on the hill there. And parking's just horrendous.
The parking's the biggest
That's
problem.
one ground that's overrated.
But
I love
Tiger
it.
fans.
I love it.
Regardless, suburban grounds, yes. We've actually got a bit of a snippet on our YouTube page talking about the importance of suburban grounds from last week's podcast that we sort of cut up. If you're interested in sort of hearing what we had to say, go and have a look at that in our podcast. I'll link it actually in the bottom as well in the description so you guys can go look at that.
I reckon in terms of suburban grounds, blue ribbons are your Shark Parks, your Coggeries, your Belmores, your Brookvales, your Campbelltown Sports Ground. don't talk Leichhardt Oval because that honestly needs a major revamp.
It does, yeah.
It does,
Yeah.
but Ken, it's just there is actually another playing field behind there. We used to train on that.
Yeah.
So that it's going to cost a couple $100 million if they want to redo it.
Because of the location, isn't it? Yeah.
You know,
I mean, look, back on the Dogs and Warriors, sorry, it's just, I have to say, it was disappointing to lose, but it was very encouraging to see them play below par, but only lose by 2 points. And in sort of the last couple of minutes, they defended well. They scrambled for each other. Kiraz again, incredible. Like
Having a good season, isn't he?
man, honestly, we were saying before he's a smoker for Origin in the next couple of years, 100%. I think he's someone that is going to continue to rise, and he's becoming like the blueprint winger that just puts in and puts in and puts in and puts in. He's incredible.
Well, I saw some of your former players today that look like they can still lace it up. So if the team does start going down, look, Big Willie and Big Sonny and Hasm, they're looking in great shape.
Aren't they what? Hey, watch out. We might have some of them on the podcast soon.
Keep an eye out.
Keep an eye out, guys. And then we got the Knights and Raiders. I just want to say very quickly on this one.
Well done, Newcastle.
I can't believe Newcastle won this.
Well done.
They're missing what?
I didn't tip them.
9 players, not 8-9 of their best players.
Undermanned.
Absolutely undermanned. And they still managed to pull out a really good win. Jackson Hastings, I gotta say, the Tigers let the wrong half go because Jackson Hastings has been playing out of his skin. Fantastic.
My choice, Greg Marshall.
Wow.
He's a powerhouse. I noticed him last year at Gold Coast and I found it odd they let him go. Because I think he benches something like 190 kilos.
He's a little man. He's a man of Utah. That's what he reminds me of.
He's a bigger version of Utah and he can pace. He's just,
But
look
you
at the
know what?
size of him.
I still don't understand why they dropped Dominic Young. I think Dominic Young is still one of the best wingers in the game. But
Who's the other winger, Heimel Hunt?
Yeah.
They dropped him
Playing
because
well.
he signed with the Roosters, didn't he?
I think so.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean-
you know what? It was an inspired choice and inspired performance by
I just don't
Marshall.
think it's young. It's fair for Young though, because I don't think he warranted being dropped.
I think Marjorie ran something like 300 metres as well. He tackles hard and he's hard to tackle.
Oh look, no doubt. I think Marjorie was good. Raiders were very disappointing. I got to say,
They've evaporated from my top.
I thought with Papali'i coming back, they were going to be able to just crush it up the middle.
I think Raiders are another team that needs to have a bit of a look at inside, and a bit of change needs to happen. I just think, like you said, I think they're stuck in 2019. They're still trying to play the same plays over and over.
Can't
and
wait for the next game.
Let's just see.
And Nico Hines announces his return to the NRL.
I thought you were going to say retirement.
I was like, tiring.
Absolute drubbing of the Dragons. And just to remind Dibbo, the score was 40-8. 40-8. 40-8.
You know, it doesn't even, I don't know, I think I don't feel pain anymore.
It's numb. You're just numb.
I'll be honest, I was very disappointed with the Dragons. I think that their performance was a very unmotivated, deflated performance, and I do think it has something
That's
to do
probably
with.
why I didn't feel the pain.
But I think that it has something to do with Hook being told he needs to reapply for his job, and they're looking for other coaches. Like,
They've got a few things wrong.
but you know what? I think clubs need to stop doing this.
Yeah.
You're destabilizing your team. You're disheartening your juniors. You're disheartening your fans. Look, Anthony Griffin, first 2 games, I thought the Dragons were okay. Sure, they lost in the last 10 minutes to the Broncos, but the Broncos are the form team
What was the
of
score
the
again?
competition. I don't even remember. It was 700-0 or something.
But you're right. Like, I think just coming out and saying, "Oh, you got to apply for your position next year." I'm not sure what they're trying to do. Is it meant to be like a Warner Brothers motivational movie? It's like, you don't get your job.
Moneyball, like what the hell?
But I don't know. I just feel like
I didn't think it was a bad move personally. So I mean, Hook knows it's his last year.
Yeah, but
he knows he has to perform. So Hook, here it is. You have to reapply. So if you really want this job, coach out of your skin.
But
if you
Dibbo,
really
let me
want
ask you this. It's not about what they said. It's what they didn't say. So let me tell you this.
Right.
If your boss comes up to you and says, hey, Dibbo, we're not sure we're going to keep you on next year. When it comes up, when your contract's over, we're going to ask you to reapply. What is that saying? That's saying we don't think you're good enough, and we're only saying we want you to reapply so that we don't tell you right now in the beginning of the year that we don't want you for next year. We're just keeping you on the hook. Just, no, that was
Unintended.
a pun unintended. But
came out good.
Right? We're keeping you on the hook to say, okay, you're not completely out of the picture, but there's a good chance you're not going to be there, which essentially means to Anthony Griffin, they don't want him there for next year because he's not good enough. Because if he was, they wouldn't be taking this position because there's no way they're going to ask him to reapply.
So what do you think it is?
But he would have worked.
They're just trying to say
He would
face.
have worked it out himself. He knows he has to make the finals or at least have a good start to the season.
There's no scenario where Hook keeps his position, bar he makes the top 4 and makes it to the grand final.
It's a performance based. You know how it is. It's
Yeah.
performance based.
I agree with you.
They've spent 5 years out. This will be their 50 if they don't make it out of the top 8. It's unacceptable.
What support did they give him over the summer to sign players? Honestly,
Look, that's one thing I was going to touch on. Like if you saw the game, the possession was pretty even. Cronulla just did a lot of things with the ball, whereas St. George just did nothing with the ball. Cronulla's forwards absolutely ran over the top of St. George's, so that's where they've gone wrong. They haven't really recruited middlemen, front rowers. Their front rowers compared to others, there's no depth there, and their front rowers can't really compete with the other premier front rowers in the game. They get just absolutely demolished. I mean, I'm watching Blake Laurie. He looks like a punching bag at the moment. I know he can hold his own. Look,
they call him the kick on wheels or something.
Look, I know he can hold his own, but he's just copying too much punishment. It's going to eventually take its toll on him.
I honestly think that he's not even your biggest problem. He's been consistent as a forward. I think your problem is...
I'm just pointing out our recruitment.
He's got no support.
That's what I'm saying. We're very thin
I think also like just generally the way that the club's manage and all that kind of stuff. Because even in the preseason, you had somebody leak that 2 players were fighting in training.
I think they got rid of that cancer now. So he wants an immediate job. Look, no better than a prima donna club like Manly. So...
But like, I mean, as in, if those issues are happening underground, maybe it's time for them to sort of think, all right, what's not working here? Is it the connection? Because, they say a champion team is better than a team of champions.
They finally made, look at the Dolphins.
Yeah, Dolphins.
Champion team.
They finally made a decent move by getting those 2 middle young. I know they're young, but they're thinking of the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're exactly right, both of you. It's obviously off the field, and it comes down to recruitment as well.
Yeah.
And then there's little mistakes. I think Hook's going to realise this mistake. I know he swapped Sully and Lomax on side, but Lomax has got a left-hand fend. Now he's on the left side. He can't utilise that anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think he's going to have to go back to the right because he used to get that offload away, and you saw he was horrible in defence against Cronulla.
Yeah, he got run over.
He's on his weakest side.
Out of position.
Look, don't get me wrong. Sully's got a mean-ass left-hand fend as well. But he excels on the left side as well.
Yeah.
And I think as a big boy, he can use his body a lot more as well. Not just defend. You've got the body that he can just...
Look, I think having someone like Sully, Sua, now they've got those 2 young forwards, it might help them. It might help them start attracting players.
If at least Fafita debuts this year, I think he'll go a long way to at least showing...
I think he's a lot like Paseka, but...
Yeah, he is. But Paseka's a great forward, and if you have someone like Paseka in your team, look at what he's doing for Manly.
I think, look... Yeah. I think Armone might come into the lineup this week.
Armone's good. He's
a ball runner. I think Sullivan will probably either slot to the bench.
No, you got to pick and stick. Stake with Sullivan.
He's got to go somewhere, potential. Or maybe Hunt will go to hooker and give Sullivan the 7.
Hunt anyway.
Armone, look, Talatau Armone has to start.
Yeah.
I think he might come into the 17 this week.
I think he's good, and I think
Even off the bench.
He needs
if
to
you're
come
not going
back.
to start him off the bench.
He's had a rough couple of months, and now he's been sort of exonerated from everything. He's back. Let him play. Let him show what he's worth.
I think, yeah.
So that was the round 4 review. It was a great round. It was the bunker that blundered it for us.
Just one
But-
game ruled it.
But
One blowout
It
game.
was like the 7th time. or 8th time.
Just that blowout game.
we should have a bunker counter. Like how many times I mentioned the bunker
Every
in
time
the
it
game?
says bungers, go beep.
Yeah. Beep it out. So round 5 preview. We start with the Rabbit Roosters and the Eels on
great.
Thursday night.
It's gonna be a good game.
What a game! I can't even call this. Really, I looked at the Eels lineup and the Roosters
So
lineup.
is that Allianz Stadium?
They both got key outs.
Yeah.
So you
That's
got,
actually,
it's at the Allianz.
is it? It's at Allianz.
You got Joey Manu out from the Roosters. That's a key out. But then you got Parramatta's forward pack leader out, Junior Paulo. I think it's a massive loss.
It's a big loss. Yeah.
I think it
Down the middle,
sort of
yeah.
cancels it out a little bit because I think
I know you got Wurumu.
Bowler
Greg.
does a lot for the Eels, and then Manu plays out of his behind for the
Yeah,
Roosters.
so-
You got Wurumu, Greg. I know he offers impact, but I don't think he offers it for an extended period like Paulo does.
I agree.
So I'm going to go Roosters on this.
Absolutely.
Roosters by 12 for me.
I think you know why I want to go Roosters. I think that Joseph Suaalii will come out and just blitz it. I think he's going to come out and just show everyone why he's worth what he's worth. He's a big game player, I think, and he can pull plays out of anything. That's the only reason I'm going the Roosters. I think Roosters by 4, honestly, 4 or 6. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes down to Golden Point. I think
Of course, from what we've seen,
it'll be that
you're
close.
right, yeah.
It'll be that close.
Well, yeah, Roosters by 12.
I'll probably say, I want to say Roosters,
Yeah.
but I feel like maybe the Eels will have a bit of confidence coming out of last week's win.
Yeah, they
And
will.
I feel like
One win
maybe
does
the
you a lot.
momentum,
Absolutely.
I think that, like, as much as I hate to say this and admit it, but I think the momentum from last week's big win over the Penrith Panthers will probably just get them over the line here. And it's at Allianz, so it's an Eels home game.
Well,
But there's going to
which
be more
ground
Eels
is the
supporters.
Roosters' home ground?
I don't know. Wherever they have more supporters.
Cover over when the Dragons are losing.
Then the 6 p.m. Friday game, it's going to be Raiders and Panthers. Look, I think the Raiders will hit back, but I also think the Panthers will.
Look, you're missing, the Raiders got a key out in Jack White.
Yeah.
I think, is that not going to sway your decision? Or because Canberra does have a history of winning games that they need to win against tough opposition. Is this one of those?
I think.
Or are they going to let us down once again?
I don't think they're strong enough for the Panthers. I think they might come out strong.
Yeah.
I think they might keep neck to neck with the Panthers maybe for the first half.
Yeah.
But I feel like towards the end of the
They'll
game,
hold 'em out.
I feel like the Panthers are going to sort of.
Zach Hoskins was
Yeah.
a revelation last week, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach Hostings played out of his skin.
He was good at Brisbane, so he's
But
Penrith by 14.
wait, Zach.
I know it's away from home, but I'm still going Penrith by 14.
probably say-
Zach Hoskins is starting.
Oh, is he starting this
Yeah, he's
week?
taking
Yeah.
over Luke Garner.
Wow.
I always thought Garner wasn't a starter anyway, so
I look, Hosking outplayed Garner 10 to 1.
Garner's out of the hole.
The only thing that I like about the Raiders is that Fogarty is back. While obviously Wyden is a big out, I think Fogarty adds a lot to their attack. So I do think the Panthers win, but I think it'll be closer than.
You think so?
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot closer.
I think it'll probably be like Panthers by like 16 or something.
I reckon
feel
Panthers
like,
by 12.
I feel like they're gonna
I think we've all gone
just come
similar,
out.
12, 14.
I reckon
Yeah,
so.
I feel like it's gonna be
6 to 12.
Could even be more.
Rabbitohs and Storm. It'll be a good game.
Barnstorming game. A depleted Storm. They're still missing their halfback and a few forwards. But
You got Salamona
and look,
out.
I know, he's a big loss.
Jonah Pezzett had a
He's a very confident
couple of
player,
games.
right?
He's a very confident player.
West Tigers need him. Anyway,
But I think Rabbitohs are.
look, Rabbitohs are missing a few forwards, but after last week, I'm going to go Rabbitohs again. I think I'm going to go Rabbitohs.
They've
by
still
12.
got their core, which is
Yeah.
I think a big part of it.
And let me say,
Tatalo's not playing, but still.
the development of Lachlan Elias is unbelievable.
You're
I'm so happy
starting
for
to
him.
really see him, shine.
He's an out and out halfback. Like that's what I love seeing. I love seeing young halfbacks come into the game and be halfbacks, not try and be anything else.
And Souths,
Yeah.
they've got big depth as well. I know they're missing a few forwards, but just to give you an example, if you look at their 22, like Peter Mamazoulis,
Yeah.
he can't even crack the 22. And you put him in a lot of other clubs and he'd probably be a
And
starting
he played
hooker.
really well when he played last year when he had the chance.
Yeah.
And look, I still think, they've got a decent back line, right? They've got their halves are still there. I think Saluka Fafita had a very good game last week against Manly, even though I think Manly's forwards did outmuscle the Rabbitohs forwards because they've got so many injuries. I still think they had a good game. I think Michael Chican, they played him as a forward. He played
Nicely.
well.
He's very experienced. Campaigner.
Very experienced
Yeah, very
campaigner.
experienced.
And to be honest, when the Tigers got rid of him, I understood why, but I sort of also questioned whether it was the right move. But anyway, I'm calling Rabbitohs by 6. I don't think they'll blow Melbourne off the park because I do think that that the Melbourne Storm are getting a little bit better. The young guys are starting to gain a little bit more experience. And great, what's his name? Bellyache will have them up for the game.
Yeah.
So I think
I don't know. I just think that minus Jerome Hughes,
and
Solomona, and no Pappenhausen, and the way they played against the Tigers. I find it really, but again, like you said, Bellamy is a master coach, and but I still think the Rabbits. Sorry, not the Rats. Not about it's the Rabbits, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I blanked out for a moment.
Rabbits and Storm.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like the Rabbits
Stop
are going to...
about the Cowboys, bro.
we're going to get there. But I do think that, the Rabbits will probably win by probably 12. I think by 12 points.
6 to 12. Honestly, I don't think it will be a blowout.
I had them by 12. I got the Rabbits by 12.
I don't think it will be a blowout. I hope not anyway.
No, I don't think it'll be a blowout, but 12 is...
And then you've got Seagulls on Knights, 3 p.m. on Saturday.
I think Seagulls will bounce back. Look, I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it'll be a close and spiteful clash, to be honest.
You think so?
I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be a lot closer than people expect.
Yeah, I do think.
I'll go Manly by 8 or 10.
I'll go Manly by 12. But the one thing I'm realising about the Knights is I think they're starting to come to terms with life after Kalen Ponga. I think that's what it was last week, where they said, okay, this is the team we've got. We're missing Kalen. Sure, he's injured. He's in Canada. He's doing his testing. Let's just put that behind us and let's go out there and play footy.
Yeah.
And I think they did that very well last week. I do think they'll do that this week. Manly's going to be too strong for them in the forwards. That's what I think. Yeah. And the experience in that with DCE and Tommy Turbo being there, Manly will win, but I think Knights will give a good account of themselves again. Yeah.
I think similar. Like I think Manly's going to be too strong.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a bit. I'd probably say like 18.
I hope it isn't.
I feel like it is. If Tommy Turbo's on his game, which he usually is. I just think it's going to be too good.
Is Turbo the most creative fullback in the game? Because he's got good set of ball playing skills to him as well. He's got a bit of vision.
I love watching him. Like
he's everywhere. He runs more than other fullbacks.
I think take Turbo out of the Manly team, and I don't even think they're a top 8 team. I personally think.
Look, I don't disagree with you. But I think if Turbo, God forbid, was to get injured, I do think Manly will struggle to.
Oh, hands down, his impact's so huge.
Yeah.
You could tell.
But he's not the most creative forward. I think the thing about
are you talking about Jake or Tom?
Tom.
He's
not the most creative. The thing about Tom is that he's fast, he's big, he's aggressive, and he's got good positioning, and he's just like an all-round fullback, and he's got
everywhere you need him.
He's everywhere
you need him in the right time.
The most creative fullback, I would say, and people might disagree with me on this, but I think Scott Drinkwater's up there.
Of course.
Honestly,
AJ Brimson or not.
I swear to God, I was thinking either Scott Drinkwater or AJ Brimson.
But you can't discount Turbo Tom.
I'm not at all.
I know. Latrell's a power player.
Oh, I forgot about Latrell.
But he's a power player.
But Latrell's a power player. I think Tommy is a power player. Whereas if you look at Scott Drinkwater and AJ Brimson,
I reckon all those you just mentioned are more creative than Tedesco. That's my personal opinion.
I actually think that what gets Tedesco across the line is that he's an Energizer bunny. He just doesn't stop.
He's like Mini. Remember Mini?
Yeah, he's exactly like Minicello.
He just keeps
Reece Wesser. Reece Wesser's Energizer.
You know what annoys me about Tedesco is that I think sometimes he's too energetic for his own good, where he tries to do the hero play. A lot of time, I've seen that with New South Wales. I've seen that with Roosters, where he can pass the ball and let someone else.
Remind me of Paul Gallen, just taking too much of the workload, and it just became too predictable. So.
Did you remember how Bo Ryan used to do the imitation of Paul Gallen, where he would minimise Paul Gallen's head and just be like,
choo-choo train.
The
D-train.
Bro, I used to love that.
So predictable.
I can't believe Bo Ryan's not on. He was such a good person to have commentating NRL. Anyway, so Sea Eagles. Dragons, Dolphins. I think Dragons will bounce back, but I think Dolphins, they've got a lot of injuries.
They're missing, you know what? It depends how well Milford will go in the halves, him in Qatar.
Yeah.
Because I know O'Sullivan's out. It's a big loss because he's been really
massive
good.
Loss.
And Tessie
New, but I think this new kid, Bostock's got the goods in him.
Yeah, I do think he does.
It just comes down, I think, how the halves are going to go.
Marshall King's back as well.
Yeah.
I think Marshall King
and whether the forwards.
So much.
Yeah.
I know St. George's got a lot to prove. I've seen the list there. I know Talatau Amon and DeBellin are in the 22. I do expect them both to come into the 17.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I mean, I could probably nominate maybe Couchman and Kerr would miss out.
You don't think Jack DeBellin will be in?
No, I think he'll be in. I think Kerr and Couchman probably come out and DeBellin and Amon will come in.
I think Kerr had a great game though.
He did. Don't get me wrong, he did, but I just can't say. I mean, Musgrave's
playing. But Musgrave, you can't drop
He's
Musgrave.
playing really good. But Jack Bird was underwhelming, so they might start him this week instead of putting
you have to start. I think you have to give Jack Bird.
He has to start. I think he was better off starting than coming off the bench. Look, I think St. George got a lot to prove. It's down in Wollongong. I'm actually going to throw this one out of left field and say St. George by 4. It's the first time I've tipped them this
Take
year.
your St George Sunnies off because let me tell you, they've got Isaiah Katoa and Anthony Milford in the halves. They've got Jeremy Marshall-King back at 9. They've got Jared Wallace, Mark Nichols, Ray Stone and Mason Teague on the bench, whereas the Dragons have Jacob Little, Zane Musgrove, Toby Catchman and Josh Kerr. I think that the Dolphins have a better bench, and I think overall that the starting lineup for the Dolphins is still very strong and very consistent. And even though O'Sullivan is a big loss, I think they still have a good team. Branko Lee is there. Aiken, they've been very consistent.
I just think that's just my opinion. I think they've got a lot of proofs in George. They're going to come out, play out of their skins. I think Dolphins last week had a pulsating game against Brisbane. I think it's probably taken a bit out of them.
No, I think that
as a player,
out of that.
As a player, if you remember when you played as well, if you had a pulsating game, you'd probably feel it for the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely,
and I guarantee these guys wouldn't be any different.
I think I still lean toward the Dolphins, and I think it's going to be a close
one.
one.
I'm just saying, I'm throwing out of left field.
I reckon Dolphins by 12.
I'd love to go to. I mean, I was thinking Dolphins, but I think you know what? You get embarrassed 40-8 at home. They got to really bounce back.
But the week before they lost by 40.
Yeah, they really got to. They're desperate. If they don't get it this week, then they might go on a 5 or 6, 7 match losing streak.
I think that the Dolphins will win by 12. That's
a good shout, yeah, man.
Broncos and Tigers. I think Tigers are in for a lot of pain. Adam Dewey.
I think we could just skip this.
Yeah, I was going to say
Broncos by 30.
Broncos by penny.
Yeah,
I wish the Tigers pull a rabbit out of the hat, and I'm praying that they do, but I just don't think
Sean Blaw's not in their 17.
Which I don't understand.
I mean, if you remember a few years ago, he absolutely Nathan Brown, he sat Nathan Brown on his ass, you know, and when Nathan Brown thought he was a bad boy, but you could tell he wasn't.
Bro, the last 15 minutes against the Dogs, it was all Sean Blaw. It was literally all Sean Blaw running through.
I don't understand why he's not in the 17. Is there something that's happened? I mean, Dane Laurie's back out of the 17
Why
as well.
Stafford Toa? Oh, do you know what it might be? I actually think Adam Dewey might...
They obviously got a game plan.
Yeah.
I just thought...
I thought Adam Dewey didn't have a good game at fullback, I'll be honest.
I know Wakeham's at 6, but I mean, Dan Laurie's a fullback, week in, week out fullback. They'll give you a good 80-minute performance.
He's pretty decent.
I actually like Dan Laurie.
Is he short of match fitness? Tim Sheen's having another game plan up his sleeve.
Do you think he's just trialing? Is that what it is? Trial and error?
But the problem is, like, when the team's going bad, you try and make decisions that you think will help elevate the team based on some things you saw the week before. And I think that's why against the Dogs, when they brought Wakeham on and moved Dewey to fullback, right, they thought this is how we're going to win. And it didn't work against the Storm. And I don't think it's going to work again against the Broncos. Not only because the Broncos are good, but I think that if you make a big move like that, give it some weeks to work. And also don't, like, it's almost like you're blaming Dane Laurie for saying you're not good enough. Or actually, I think Dane Laurie's been trying his heart out. It's one of the best players. I can't blame him for... Yeah, but look at that.
Which way are you going with this?
Broncos by 50.
I think it's going to be a blowout.
I hope it doesn't. I really hope it's like Tigers by...
I was going to say Broncos either by 16 or 20.
Yeah,
I got that.
13 plus. I think Broncos by 13 plus.
I'll go Broncos by 20.
Yeah. Sharks Warriors Sunday at 4 p.m.
I think Sharks. Like if Nico Hines is back, he's such a good player, man.
Look, man,
I think Storms regret getting rid of him.
You know what? Like, Warriors got a good forward pack.
Yeah,
they can match the Cronulla forward pack. I'm just looking at the list.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Warriors by 6 for this one.
Yeah, you got it. You can't just keep saying home side and
it's
a good shout. It's actually a very good shout.
And to be honest, I think that the Warriors have it in them this year.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, mate,
they are an 80-minute team. The years gone by, Warriors have not been 80-minute teams. This year, we saw that against the Cowboys. Yeah. We saw that against the Bulldogs. They are an 80-minute team. I think if Tohu Harris plays, because he's been named, but I don't think he will play.
I hope Volkman has a gun of a game at 5'8", because Volkman's in. Ronald Volkman's starting at 5'8".
Yeah, but I mean, what happened to Mari Martin?
He's out for HIO, I think.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah, but Volkman's a huge potential.
They bought him from the Roosters. He had big raps on him at the Roosters. He's gone to the Warriors. Yeah, I also hope he has a good game. So I'm calling Warriors by 4. How do you guys see this?
It's a tough one. I'm going to go Cronulla by 8 or even 10 because of their last performance against St George. Just, it's just like they're irresistible because from 1 to 13 and their bench, they got strike weapons everywhere.
Yeah.
You got to give them that shout.
Yeah.
And look, Warriors they got a good forward pack, but just on form, you just got to give it's a Cronulla home game as well. You got to get them over the line. Cronulla by 10.
I also think Cronulla hasn't been that great, even though Nico Hines has been out. They had a good game last week with Nico Hines, but I do think Warriors.
Every ball they touch was magic.
Yeah,
I think Sharks by 2.
It's a close one.
I think it's going to be a very, very
could
close
be golden
one.
point.
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't even be surprised.
Sharks by 10. That's not a blowout score.
I'm going
like.
Warriors by 4, not a blowout.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
That's a good shout. Yeah. It's not a blowout score.
Finally, last game of the round.
One we've been waiting for.
Oh my God. Dogs and Cowboys. Josh Reynolds makes his long-awaited return to the Bulldogs.
Absolute disaster.
Think so?
Yeah, because like 1 minute left on the clock, Reynolds will kick a drop goal and Canterbury will lose 30-13. just kidding.
I don't think that it's a bad move, but I also don't think it's the right move because I want to see Josh Reynolds back. Because what I think could happen potentially is we could see if that attack is stagnant, we could see maybe Cole Flanagan hooked with Reynolds going in there alongside Burton. I think he'd create that X factor. Or even, you could take someone like a Raymond Faitala Mariner off, bring Reynolds in. He can sort of play that roaming player to sort of link between be a link between the halves and the centers, which I don't think is a bad idea. But it's our forwards. That's where we're struggling. 3 weeks in a row, we've been gassed at the 65th minute. Having said that, we've got Waddell, Pele, and Ockenbaugh. It's probably one of the better benches now we've had over the first 5 weeks. If Pele can if we can get 20 minutes out of Pele and half an hour out of Ockenbaugh and half an hour out of Waddell and even 15, 20 minutes out of Reynolds, I do think we'll go a long way to winning because we have the attack in us. What we've seen is we have the attack and the defense in us, but we're gassed. I think that's the biggest problem the Bulldogs have.
Accor, is it? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I got Canterbury winning this game. Last week, Gold Coast should have beaten the Cowboys, I thought.
Yeah.
I know Cowboys have had a few ins, but they've also had a few outs at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Shibasaki, Tamo,
they lost Nanai, they've lost Tuolagi and Tamo.
Yeah.
Look, even Tamo's like, I know he's on the back end of his career, but he's still a man mountain. And he played really well last week, but Nanai and Tuolagi, I feel, are big losses.
Huge losses.
I know they get Hiku back.
Yeah.
But still, I think
I think Tom Chester's been a really good fullback.
He was great. Yeah, he was very full of energy.
Some very, very, very questionable plays. Like I was looking at that, I'm like, that's frustration.
But that's youth as well.
Is it inexperience?
It's very much
because there were a couple of things he did there, like a 3-on-1 strip. I'm like, what
are you doing? Also, when he threw the ball back in and they almost scored.
Yeah, I was like,
I remember Billy Slater in his first season did that, right?
Yeah.
And it was more his willingness to make the right play and take the risk as opposed to let it go out, whatever. I think Tom Chester's going to develop into a great fullback. Do I think that they have the team to beat the Bulldogs? This may be one-eyed, but I think the Bulldogs by 6.
I got Bulldogs by 10. I was going to actually do it more, but I think Cowboys, if they're going to have one of those uninspiring games again, this is the game they're going to actually come unstuck.
Yeah.
Look, Bulldogs bench, and you got Jackson Torpeny. When does he get a run?
I don't understand why Torpeny doesn't get a run.
Ockenbaugh hasn't really been getting minutes. Either give him the minutes or put Torpeny in there, and he deserves a run. I didn't like Josh Reynolds being in there. I don't think he should even be in the squad whatsoever. I don't think he's going to be up to the rigours of first grade this year at all. I think it'll be his last season.
Yeah.
I think Torpeny should have been there. If you had Torpeny, Waddell, Pele and Ockenbaugh, all of a sudden...
Waddell's got a lift. He should be offering more. Pele really need a big game out of Pele.
But the thing is, Pele isn't given the minutes. I don't know if that's fitness. I don't know if that's the coach not trusting him. I don't know what it is. But Pele, I think
I would have given Olawaipu his debut now instead of Reynolds. Right, and I would have loved that there. And if you're not going to have Ockenbaugh in the 17, I'd have Torpeny in 17.
Why are they bringing Reynolds back? I feel like it's like a fairy tale thing.
Because
it's bringing the Prince of Belmore back.
I think that's just wrong.
The thing is, they had Fa'amanu Brown there I
thought he was a good option at 14.
Yeah, he's not a bad option, but he was bringing him on as a forward. And that's where I think Fa'amanu Brown wasn't up to scratch. If you kept him in at that lock position, he can roam and pass and stuff. Okay. Well, I think Josh, if as I say, if we can even just get 20 minutes out of each of our forwards, right, that gives kick out Mariner, Sutton, King some rest. We can get towards a healthy stamina level towards the 65th minute. If that happens, I do think towards the end of the game we can hold any team out. Like our defense is really good.
If your forwards play well and he's limit Tamalalo, you'll win. I got you by 10.
I agree. I think I do think Faitala Mariner, he's not a lock.
They got to keep Tamalalo quiet.
I think Mariner is more of a he's more of a second rower than a lock. I think have like a Preston at lock. Let him, because he seems to be able to pass the ball a lot better than Faitala Mariner does. I reckon have Preston at lock and tell him, hey, go around and link up with your centers. That's fine. But look, the other thing that I think I have to mention, and look, honestly, I'm not picking on one player, but we need more out of Flanagan. I just think Burton is trying to do too much. He's not able to play his natural game. He's not able to hit those big bombs. He's trying to do the safe kicks now because I think Flanagan is like, it's either he's been told not to kick or he's scared to kick. He's always looking to pass or to offload the ball on 5th. Brother, you're a 7. Play like a 7. That's what we want from you. Bro, make mistakes, learn from them and get better. Don't be scared.
Sometimes he's very pedestrian. Like a whole set, he won't touch the ball or even a set and a half.
He needs to get a bit more involved. Yeah.
He's just scared. He's like, his confidence is shot. Maybe he needs to go to the Super League to play in a different league to see how well he can play and come back. Maybe he needs to go to a different team.
He had a lot of changes though. I came from the Roosters,
the
Sharks, and the Dogs.
Sorry,
Look,
Trent Barrett stuffed
just back on Preston. I think the reason why your coach has him in the second row, because if you watch Preston, he's actually been very effective as a wide running second row.
He has been, yes.
So he probably sees him as more effective running wide than Raymond Faye-Taylor Mariner. That's why why Mariner's more up the middle. That's,
as a prop, sort of.
Or he does more defensive work as well. That could possibly be it. I mean, again, it wouldn't hurt to probably get an explanation from the coach.
Hey, Cameron, if you ever watch this, please just tell us why are you only playing with 15 and a half players?
2.5 men off the bench.
Before I make
men. We just want to know, why are you not playing all your players and giving them sufficient time on the bench? I mean, I know you've got a strategy and I know the Dogs have improved, but I think we could have been even better with a better rotation. Please explain. Thank you.
Before my pick, I think the Cowboys.
Yeah, I want to hear the Cowboys.
I actually think the Cowboys are going to come out strong in the beginning. They always do this, right?
Yeah.
They do. They always come out strong in the beginning, and I think the Dogs have this tendency, and they've done this before, where sometimes they don't start the best, but then they can come out pretty strong in the mid half of the game.
Yeah.
But then you're right, that 60th minute, that 65th minute comes along, and they start to fade off. Yeah. And I feel like the Cowboys are going to just get them. I think if the Dogs do fade off in that 65th, it's going to be close. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I don't think it's a blowout, but I think because of the Dogs' tendency to do that at the end, I think the Cowboys will just pip them. But the fact that you've got Nanite, Tuolagi, you've got all these players out, if Tamalolo fires, like you mentioned, I actually think he's one of the only players to sign a 10-year contract and only get better as he ages. Like, he's getting a bit older now.
I don't think he got better. I think he just played at a consistent level.
Yeah, but I mean, how many players have you seen sign 5-year contracts and then 3 years into that, other than Ben Hunt? I feel
like in the beginning when he first signed his 10-year contract, he did get better. Like he really upped his game and then he stabilized.
I thought he undervalued himself at the start.
Yeah, but like he's in, week in, week out. He puts in the effort. You know, he took us to the grand final in 2017. Just off the back of that work that he did.
Why was averaging 280 meters again? What the hell is that?
He made Jonathan Thurston look like a fraud. But
you know, the thing about him is he's also he's had a different role now with Todd Payton, which I think has suited him as well, and he's come back to sort of being that consistent Taumalolo.
That's right.
I don't think they're getting the best out of him this year yet, but if we can keep Taumalolo quiet,
they're preserving his playing minutes, which is good.
Yeah,
they don't go to prolong his career.
Why I think also we can get it is Tom Chester's still inexperienced at fullback. Yep. If we can put in the right kicks, if we can continue to kick the corners, if we can pressure Kyle Felt and Brendan Elliott, who I don't think is the best winger, I think we can because our line speed this year has been great. Even when we're tired, I still think our line speed's been great. It's just the 1%ers that we've missed out on. And I do think it's been 1 or 2 players. Like, I'm not going to point them out, but it's been 1 or 2 players in the 3 rounds that have made the same errors and teams have targeted them. Yeah. So if we can cut that out and shore up that little bit of a defense in the last 15, 20 minutes, honestly, I think the Dogs will win this, not by a big margin, but comfortably. They won't look like they're going to lose, or they won't look like they're under too much pressure. Having said that, if the Cowboys come out and win, I also won't be surprised because I know the quality of the Cowboys team. But
it's just been uninspiring at the moment.
But let me say this.
When are they going to hit
Let me say this for the Doggies fans: Cowboys by 20. No.
See that? That's a friend slip. Just letting you know.
I'm just trying to make our guest happy. Doggies by 24.
That's a big shout, eh? 24, right?
It's just for the fans.
But I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, it'll be a great game.
Yeah.
Dogs by 10. Yeah.
Dogs by 10. Yeah. Cowboys by.
I reckon by 4. It's
By
going to
4?
be like nothing in it. I think.
I'll say honestly.
Look, if
doggies by
Tamalala's
6.
kept quiet, the Dogs will get home.
I reckon dogs
I think
by
so,
6.
That's a tough
6 or 12
ask,
max.
Yeah.
I think. Look, I just want to say if you guys
I'll make 2 predictions.
Go.
2 predictions.
go ahead, William.
Dolphins by 12.
Yes, go the Dolphins.
Dogs by 12. And the bunker's going to screw something up.
What a
Add that into the.
I reckon the
Add
only
that.
one that's a foregone conclusion. The only one that you got right there is the bunker.
Bunker's going to make a mistake.
Nah, you know what? He's probably gave a good shout on the wall.
Yeah, hey, Fins up. Fins by 12. I think that's
and the
right.
Dogs is a good shout
Dogs,
too.
it's a good shout. 12 is not a blowout. Bunker making a mistake.
That's
Look,
the most certain. Yeah.
I think the Bunkers have already made a mistake this week. We just don't know about it.
If you look at the odds, it's
They've installed the
paying.
wrong person.
If you look at the odds, paying 1.00. No, sorry, it's 0.99.
You're not paying anything. You're losing
paying.
money. So I think that brings us to the end of the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you, Tareq. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for our 5th podcast ever. The insights you've given into mental health, into a lot of things that we've discussed has been great. Yeah. So Tareq, thank you so much for having us.
So say thank you for having me and just give me the opportunity to chat. And for anyone out there, if anything that we've discussed is making you feel unwell, please reach out, get some support. Call. There's a lot of lines out there, but also let's start creating a footy community where we can have a laugh, have some banter, enjoy the footy, but also look after each other. Life's short, and we want the best for everyone.
If in any way that you guys one of you is not feeling good or need someone to speak to, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on TikTok, you can find me on Instagram. Find me on YouTube, and I swear I won't use it as a chance to get you to subscribe. But if you need someone to speak to, honestly, I'll more than happily speak to you or direct you to Tareq, who could go directly to the right people to speak to. We're here for each other, and we just want to create that, as you say, community where fans can have a laugh, have some fun with the footy, and look after each other. Another thank you to Dibbo for
Pleasure.
Number 1, joining us for another week, and also putting up with us trashing your beloved St. George Dragons. I really hope they have a better game this week. But
I think it's just the numbness.
We'll get there.
Just numb now.
And with that, we're rounding that up. Thank you so much for watching. If you do happen to watch this part of the podcast, if you can say the words "Go the Doggies" to me directly and subscribe, you can win a little prize. It's a very small, insignificant prize, but it's only for those who watch right to the end. Not many people will see this, so if you do, there's a chance you can win. So thank you once again, and hope you have another good game of another good week of footy, and let's not have any blunders from the bunker. Thank you very much.